having Instagram do this.
Mm.
All right. All right, there we are. It's on preview. Cool. Now, I have a separate window
Yeah.
for comments for Instagram.
Okay.
Like a whole separate thing. So from what I'm understanding, they should be able to see and they'll be able to watch, but their comments should come through there. So I have another on my screen here, and there's people already popping in on Instagram like crazy. Brody is in here, Joe Mento's in here, Gravy's in here, the Butcher. We got a bunch of folks going slobs, he says. Okay, cool. And that does not show here. Todd S is in here in our deal. That's awesome. Cool. All right, good. I'm glad folks are in here. Adam Blomicky's on Instagram. Roadkill Next says hi. Marley says hello. Dude, this is wild. All right, so we got a bunch of folks in here. This is awesome. I hope you guys are ready. We're going to be doing some shit. I'm going to periodically try to make a concerted effort to take a look at the Instagram feed as well, because the comments and everything there are going to be a whole other sort of deal.
Yeah, I got to run in too, so I can help you out.
Okay,
sweet. On my phone. Yeah,
sweet. Oh, perfect. Yeah. So if you see something, let me know. We've got Dark Horse Tackle, Pat Martin. You guys are all chiming in here, dudes. It's a special night. Bobby Roast Beef busting out the micheladas. Busting out the micheladas. No, you're not into it.
Man, this is not for me.
I hear you, dude.
I'll do the dill pickle seltzers with you, but
yeah, you're not drinking anything that's got tomato juice or anything like that.
Not unless it's a Bloody Mary.
Yeah,
in the morning. Yeah.
About time you did something, Joe. Bastard.
Here
Bastards, you guys.
Here we go.
Man, so before we dive into the show, while you guys are here, a little extra something. Our guest this week is Powerbait Paul, right? Powerbait Paul came up in conversation while I was in North Carolina. Got a great chance to talk with him. It's a really, really fun interview. He's a cool guy. He's a unique angler out of New Jersey. That's going to be a whole lot of fun. And what else? There was something else I was going to add in there. A little bit of a sidebar. I'm going to be posting that interview in video format on the YouTube channel, probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks. But speaking of the YouTube channel, today I just posted the live show from Oldfields. So it's up there. You guys can check it out. Somebody already commented. I haven't had a chance to go through and talk with anybody. Got anybody on Instagram?
How long did it take to upload, Bobby?
It was about an hour and 10 minutes. It really wasn't that bad. Yeah. It wasn't terrible. It could. I think it could have been much, much worse. You know, I'm looking at this live on Instagram, and it's not awful. It's really not. It actually is pretty good. Horse Soldiers Bourbon. Oh, what's in the glass jar? That's what Adam says. I see. Yeah, I'm hip to this shit. I'm hip to this shit.
Multitasking.
I love it, dudes. I love it. I'm gonna go ahead and crack this sucker open. So you guys gonna hear some new stuff. I'm trying to change some things up a little bit on this show, but we're going to have ourselves one hell of a show. I got to open up these notes too. I haven't seen anything since you've added anything to it.
Nothing crazy. I got a gear of the week and I just did my week in review.
Your week? Oh, beautiful, dude. Oh, look at that. That's awesome. We will get that tech talk segment together. We don't have an FTG. I put up a story yesterday asking folks to submit an FTG via audio. So we're just going to skip an FTG this week because I can't really think of anything I can pull out of, the ether right off the top of my head. No, not really. I mean, all my fishing outings were actually pretty good. So we'll probably skip that this week, but no worries. Paige and I just got out of the woods, Corey, fishing all day. Nice, dude. Not jealous at all. Not jealous at all. I got out a little bit today, but you guys are going to hear about that. You ready to do this?
Let's do it.
All right. Fuck it. Let's go ahead and do it. We'll jam this show out. All right. I am going to make sure that I'm rolling. And we'll go ahead and get this sucker started. We are rolling in 3, 2, guys? Bobby Roast Beef back here with another episode of Jigs and Bigs. We got one hell of a show lined up for you this week. Some new stuff is going on. This is sort of a little reintroduction, and we're going to talk about that in our first segment. Guys, this week we got some stuff to talk about here. Got a lot of congratulations to a close friend of the show. We also have some info on, we're going to talk spring bladed jigs, chatterbaits in the spring. We'll dive into that in our first segment. We also have a little bit of discussion to talk about in just the tip. What's the correct order of when you're throwing baits? What's something that you consider that you should at least consider? Sean the Fisherman left me with some really good information that kind of stuck with me last fall, and I'm applying it right now, and it's paying off big time. We got some information in our Gear of the Week about a new, something you might be interested in, especially if you're a gearhead. It's right up your alley. We've got none other than Powerbait Paul with us on our show this week. You're not going to want to miss Powerbait Paul and I sat down last night, had a great conversation. We talk all kinds of fishing. Trust me, guys, you are not going to want to miss it. We got Jigs and Bigs coming up right after this. Don't go too far. Dudes, welcome everybody. Jigs and Bigs. I don't want to call this season 2, but I feel like there's a little evolution. Joe, how are you this week?
I am doing awesome. Trying to warm
Awesome,
up
man.
from the frigid temps that we got back all of a sudden. And
let's
yeah.
talk about that for a little bit, because I'll tell you,
let's
when I got
talk
back
about
from
it.
when I got back from North Carolina, I was like, this is it, full send all the time. I'm dipping that kayak in the water nonstop. No fucks given. Let's go. I did it once. And, you know, it's just like, it's so unbelievably cold, and it's getting into the 20s regularly at night.
Yeah.
Now, I will
Yeah.
say this. I don't know about where you are, Joe. How much snow did you get where you're at?
None. We got like a
Same
little
here.
dusting that like turned into mostly just like a sheet of ice.
Generally, it was all rain for the most part that we
Yeah.
got here. But you don't have to go too much farther north, and it's a different goddamn story.
Oh, yeah.
It really is. Binya Outdoors had shared something on his story on Instagram earlier today, and he was like, yeah, maybe next, because all this week he was talking about getting out and taking the kayak out for the first time this weekend. He was jacked on it. And yeah, it's hot garbage. It's hot garbage. Like, he posted a picture. He's like, so maybe next weekend. And then I heard that in Maine, in some parts of Maine, they have over 2 feet of snow.
Oh yeah.
Which
I got friends that are going to be chasing the snow to keep skiing. You know, it's the last couple weeks that they've been doing it. They've been doing that. A couple guys from work, they just been chasing the snow.
If you're into skiing, this time of the year is hilarious to watch unfold.
Oh, it's so fun.
Because they, like, East Coast skiers will go absolutely fucking apeshit chasing anything that they can, you know, to slide down a hill. It is wild. Not my thing, but hey, good luck for you guys. I hope it all comes together. Yeah, we dodged a bullet down here with that, but I'll tell you what, like, last week's weather was not great. We had winds on Thursday that kind of rivaled what I was experiencing on Sunday in North Carolina. It was crazy, man. And I was out a little bit today, and I'll go over some of this. But one thing I did notice, this one pond I was fishing at, there was a little bit of ice crystals right along the bank of the shallowest bit of water. And I'm like, yeah. Now, you did take your boat out this week, right?
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I went out. Yeah, we'll talk about it. But I went out Friday. Yeah.
Oh, you went out on Friday. Nice. I had a day on Friday. We'll talk about all this stuff. Right. There's one thing I do want to mention before we get too far into this show, is that we have a little bit of congratulations that we have to throw out for a good friend of the show, the one and only Drew Gregory. Drew Gregory just is hot off the heels of a big win at the Yamaha Right Waters Bassmaster Kayak Series Championships, man. Drew is a homie to the show. Of course, a lot of you guys know Drew from us talking about the Kayak Adventure Series and all that coming up. It's going to be here before you know it. Like, we're talking, you can count the weeks at this point. And it's all coming down. But man, I'll tell you what, like, what a fucking win for Drew. Dude, that was amazing. And I think about it, and I'm like, that is, I mean, he's Bassmaster AOY winner previously, which is out of this world. But to add to that just a little bit, like, Drew also, like, had the, dare I say, accolade or good fortune to do our Just the Tip. segment at the Oldfields live show in Columbus, Ohio, this past February. So, I mean, like, this guy's just got wins coming from every which direction. It was a great tip, too, about being prepared. And I have been taking that into consideration a lot, Drew. So, again, congratulations, buddy, on the win. I'm super proud of you. I'm super happy for you. I hope you enjoyed and celebrated, but I know you got a lot of work coming up in terms of the Kayak Adventure Series, and I just think that that's going to be awesome. I got to reach out to him too. I got stuff we got to talk about and plan, because the Susquehanna event, I am supposed to be doing trivia at. We got to work out the details there. That should be pretty interesting. And then I got to figure out how to make it work so I can do that and still fish, because if I'm going to be there, I might as well enter and fish. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Who knows? It'll be interesting. So, you know, I think what we should do is let's go ahead and kind of let's do the reintroduction, Joe. Why don't we do that? We'll do the reintroduction. We'll talk a little housekeeping, and then we'll get into our weekly breakdown and stuff like that. As far as, you know, full disclosure with all this stuff, we actually had, before Sean had even mentioned to us that he was leaving the podcast, we had thrown around the idea, and this goes I guess it was probably around Thanksgiving. We had kind of had a realization that we had a pretty sizable audience over on Facebook, and Facebook guys, we love you. We love you guys over at Facebook. You're absolutely awesome. And we decided that we were going to kind of do a live across the board and use it as an opportunity to kind of reintroduce the show and reestablish it a little bit. So, you know, there's a lot of folks over there that even on Instagram too, both on Instagram and Facebook, a lot of folks will follow us over there, but they're not necessarily listening to the show regularly or anything like that. Some folks follow us and have no idea that we're actually a podcast. That's a whole other conversation.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Have you had any instances like that, Joe, that you've run into where folks are just like, oh, yeah, you're working with Jigs and Bigs. Like, I follow that account. Anything like that happen for you?
Yeah. It's there's a few people that have recognized me from the podcast, but they're like, oh, you know, you could tell that they, and I do this as well at my podcast. They pick and choose what they decide to listen to. They don't, listen to every episode. So don't, you know, no love lost at all.
Yeah,
but,
definitely not. Yeah, our show is a lot. It's a lot to take every single week.
It is.
It is. But again, I sort of look at the way this show is put together is let's produce a show that comes out once a week, and then you've got the entire week to be able to digest it in little chunks.
Right.
And if that's for you, awesome. And if once you get comfortable with the format, you kind of figure it out, you can kind of navigate through what you want to get to. Sometimes this first segment can be a bit much. So let's go ahead and just kind of talk about, you know, ourselves, as anglers, as content creators, as podcasters, everything else, where we started from, where we've been. I'm going to go ahead and get started, folks.
Yeah.
I am Bobby Roast Beef, and I started this podcast on April the 8th of 2020. We're coming up on 4 years now, which is absolutely insane. I think it's 4 years that we've been putting this show together. It's a little amazing. I got 5 episodes. I think Sean was episode number 5. And then we brought in Sean, not as a co-host, but as a regular segment that would pop in as Sean the Fisherman. These were stories of insanity, really. If we're being completely honest, those Sean the Fisherman stories were a blast. They were fun, they were exciting, and they were a little off the wall. In some instances, that some of the happenings that Sean would encounter on the water, the story would outdo even how good or bad the fishing may have been. So you know, we started this up, and I just my goal, you know, back in 2020, I don't know if you guys can remember all the way back in 2020, but it was a shit show that time of year in April. I have a background in I have my own business, and I have an entertainment company, and immediately the brakes were pulled on that. I wasn't doing anything. I had no work to do. All I could really do, and this isn't a complaint, I enjoyed it. All I could really do was go out and fish. And I had previously been having a conversation about wanting to create some content, a podcast specifically, because that's just the platform I enjoy the most. So I figured I would put together some kind of a podcast and work something out. And with a buddy of mine, my buddy Paul, who I talk about on the show regularly. We fish all the time. Usually we fish once a week. And Paul and I, I'm going to go ahead and share like some story that I've never shared on this show right here. And it all happened kind of at the beginning. I always wanted to have a co-host on the show, and Paul was supposed to be that co-host, but Paul got pancreatic cancer. About his diagnosis came about like a week after the first episode showed up, and it was fucking frightening. I mean, I thought I was losing my best friend. He obviously was like, holy shit, what's my family going to do? All this stuff. So my purpose and the efforts that I put into it to grow the podcast as much as I could, thank God I had the free time, was really, how can I monetize this and start a trust fund for his kids? Like, that was really what it came down to. No bullshit. This is where my head was when Jigs and Bigs started. And I've known Paul for about 25, 26 years now. We go back a long time. And I always wanted him to be the co-host, but you might say he had a little something on his plate. So he wasn't exactly into doing this show at all. And then, I had him on the show as a guest because I always knew that was going to happen at some point. And I realized like he really just didn't have it in him, the gift of gab, to kind of just like make this sort of type of content that I'm putting together necessarily work. He just wasn't into it. And he didn't even have to say anything. I knew it. And I was like, all right, cool. Well, anyway, just so everybody's clear, Paul has effectively beaten pancreatic cancer. He got it when he was young enough. He had aggressive chemotherapy and rebounded back great from his surgery. And he's been doing fantastic since. And it's awesome. Since then, we've had some really, really good adventures. We've gone to Chickamauga together. We have plans to go and fish out in the Midwest. I've been forever. I've wanted to do a Minnesota send. So we're talking about doing all that kind of stuff. Everything is good. Sean had also come up with this suggestion after we had kind of run out of steam with the Sean the Fisherman segments. Like, we had recorded a bunch, and he was like, he's like, how would you feel about having me on the show? And I could kind of like help you produce some stuff and everything else. And I was like, you know what? If you're into it and you can commit to doing it every single week, yeah, let's do it. And also for me, it was a really, really good thing because Sean brought something to the table that I was missing. And I'm not devaluing my role at all, but Sean was bringing nearly like 20 some odd years of experience on the water and fishing in all different parts of the country as well. And I knew that he would be a really, really great source of topics for conversation to bounce questions off of, all of this stuff. And, Sean and I have some history working together from way back in high school, and so I've known him for a long time. He is into this shit. And it was just a perfect fit. So we go and we start, creating content, and we're growing this. We're bringing in partners, and things are happening that I was amazed by. I mean, it was that first year, it was just like a whirlwind of just insanity. The people that we met, the people that we fished with, Joe, you being one of them. It was only 3 weeks in, and you had approached me about working together with Old Glory Outdoors. And I was like, how is this again? Like, where my head was, I was just like, yes, let's just do everything that we can and grow this network and do everything that we possibly can. And it was absolutely unbelievable. Fast forward a little bit further, and we're at the 100 episode mark, and I couldn't believe this. Before we had gotten to that level, we had started toying around with getting into online tournaments so that this way our show could kind of form a community through competitive fishing, and people could kind of get involved. We worked with a company called Chronic Trips, who is I'll say a cannabis enthusiast outdoors club. I don't really know how to explain exactly what Chronic Trips does, but during the pandemic, they had wanted to run an online fishing scavenger hunt. Like, that's really what they were going for. And they were like, yeah, multi-species. And Sean looked at this and was like, it was just counting inches, but all the species counted. You know what I mean? And there were some issues with that initial run. We had some fun with it. It was a good time. But Sean had kind of gone and put a lot of like thinking into it. And he bounced a lot of ideas off of me to say, hey, what do you think of this? And I always had this vision of like it just being like a fun game. You know what I mean? And eventually, we managed to grow that to what we've got here. It was great. We used that as a vehicle actually to raise some money. I think it was like $1,100 or $1,200 we raised for Make Massachusetts Fishing Spots Great Again in our first 100 episodes. So at that 100th episode show, we did a live event at a local bar that I've been working with for a long time, and we're going to continue doing more stuff in the future for them. Don't you guys worry about it. Jigs and Bigs holiday party. The planning for that's already started. Like, it's just a matter of like us ironing all the details, letting you guys know what's up. But you got time before that happens. Anyway, back to the story. We go and we finish our 100th episode, and it was just unreal. I couldn't believe, you were in the room, Joe. You saw that crowd that was in there. There was like 150 people that showed up to play to just witness this. It was insanity, man. And we had such a good time. It was so good. And it was right about that moment where I started to realize, like, this was really something special. And this was not just like getting together and doing some content and just talking some shit and everything. This was just everybody, like, this was bigger than that. The fishing community was bigger than even the fishing itself. And that was the thing that I really fell in love with, was just like, this community is absolutely unreal. In the amount of time that this show has been going, in 4 years, I've fished in the ocean. Never thought I would do in a kayak. Never thought I'd fish in the ocean in a kayak. I got out and I fished with my dad. Had like a blue ribbon day on Champlain with my dad. In that first year, man, there's so much stuff that I take that back. That was that second year. I've gone to, like I said, Chickamauga. I've gone and fished with at Jordan Lake. I've gone and we did the Columbus Expo. That, to me, that's amazing. So, I feel now I'm starting to get a little bit more confident in my ability as an angler to really have a good conversation with you, but also my ability as an interviewer and just an overall podcaster in general, because now I feel like when I've got a guest that joins me, I really, really take pride in the ability to get them to open up as much as they're capable, or as much as they're willing to, about their fishing stories, and just entertaining somebody and sharing their experience with the listener. That my focus has always been the listener, because I'm a podcaster. We're live streaming right now on YouTube. We're live streaming on Facebook. We're live streaming on Instagram as well, all simultaneously. And I hope you guys go and listen to the show. In fact, you're going to have to listen to the show if you want to hear any of this stuff with Powerbait Paul, because it's great. It's great. For those that don't know about Powerbait Paul, he kind of got that. He kind of became a little bit of a name. Powerbait Paul was the South Jersey correspondent for Ike Live. So, like, he was just out fishing, and I don't know. He tells a story in the interview. You're going to want to hear it. Like, he was out fishing at a spot in his area, and he's looking at this boat, and he's like, "That says Ike Live. Are you serious? Is that Mike Iaconelli out there?" And sure as shit, it was. They got to talking, and like, Ike was like, I like this guy's energy. I like what he's doing. And, he brought him on the show, and he was on the correspondent. He's been in studio, with him in there. I'm like, that is crazy, dude. And he is the most, I would say, what's the word that I'm looking for? Neglectful, not neglectful. He does not want to create content. He just wants to fish. And that's why I love this dude. And he catches tanks, even though he lives in New Jersey, that charged this motherfucker $53 to drive his trailer through that state. I am not over that, New Jersey. We're still working on it. Anyway, guys, back on track. I now, Sean had, after the 200th episode that we just celebrated this last January, Sean had given us the news that he had been accepted for a program that he's been wanting to enroll in for a while. And it does lean into potential greener pastures for him, for fishing. For fishing too. And so he's getting into this, and decided that it was the right time to leave the show. We 100% like respect and applaud his decision to go ahead and move on. But we know our work at Jigs and Bigs is not done. We're here for you guys to have some fun, and we want to provide you some really, really amazing fishing content, and engage with you guys as much as humanly possible. So with Sean's absence, I have taken over as tournament director. And I'm going to say this up front. I am not the tournament director that Sean was. Not at all. Sean was the best. He was the best tournament director. I think if you are a competitive angler, if you ever fished one of his events, you could probably say the same thing. Nobody cares as much as that guy does when it comes to running fishing events and making sure that the experience is good and making sure that everybody, nobody feels like they're overlooked or anything like that. Like he really put his effort in, and he set me up with a really great example, but god damn, there are big shoes to fill. So I'm going to do the best I can and do the best I can to make our tournament series, the multi-species scavenger hunt series, just really take off. So yeah, jigs and bigs, things have changed a little bit around here. It's okay, but we're still at it. And then, it was just last year that we brought Joe in because I started to realize that, I felt like a lot of people, and it wasn't that Sean or I tried to push into this niche, but like the fact is we both fish out of kayaks sheerly for the accessibility of them. The price point is right for kayak, you know what I mean? So that was a big thing. And we had talked about this. Joe, you came on in February. It was at the Sportsman Show was the debut.
Yes.
So it would have been the end of February. And I think I started having conversations with Sean in like September or October, just like, hey, we should really consider the idea of bringing somebody in from the big boat side, somebody else that has a little bit more understanding of that. If nothing else, just the elite series of that professional bass fishing sort of corner. And that's another thing I want to mention here. Jigs and Bigs is truly a sort of evolved into a podcast that, while yes, it's very bass fishing focused, especially on the outside, like look at the logo, it all makes sense, but we really are all about the whole angler. We've had fly anglers on here before. We've had all types of different folks that fish all types of different stuff. Guides have been on, content creators, competitive anglers, folks that are hot off a win, folks that have just been going through this shit, and they come on here and they talk about what that's like, because that's a fucking experience. It's all about sharing stories, and that's what's at the core of it right there. Whatever your story is, we're down to hear it. So then, Joe comes onto the show, and immediately it was, I feel like it was the best move we could have made. Like, we knew it made sense. I'm pretty sure, Joe, you knew it made sense. But you came onto the show, and it was just like, and there were countless listeners that would reach out and say, what a fantastic addition. Like, it's just, everything seems to be working so well. And it was great that we could say, oh, well, this is going on here. And, maybe there was some big news in an elite level, bass fishing tournament, or even something that was regional. And you had the experience that kind of like really kind of helped us have and continue that conversation. So why don't you go ahead and take it from there and kind of reintroduce yourself, Joe?
Yeah. So I don't even know if I've really actually introduced myself since I've been on the show, because the assumption's always been there that everyone kind of knows who I am. You know what I mean? From being a past guest and, just kind of chiming in on whatever. And when I previously owned Old Glory Outdoors, but yeah, so I'm Joe Brown. A lot of you may know me as Who the F is Joe Brown, thanks to Lauren, previously of Three Bells Outfitters, who dubbed me with that name, and somehow that stuck. It is the worst nickname.
It really is.
It is the worst nickname, but somehow it is stuck from all the jig heads, Lauren, everybody. So I own it and I accept it, and we do that. But yeah, so man, I've been fishing forever. My dad, I fished with him, and in the and the best part is I was more of a multi-species, kind of grew up fishing trout and with my dad I've been going up to the Salmon River in Pulaski, New York since I was my daughter's age, so like 6-7 years old, and smashing big salmon and whatnot. And but we obviously still fish bass and everything. Grew up down in Florida for a little bit. My dad relocated for work, so I was I started to hit the salt. The bass down there. I lived right next to a canal, so I would literally just catch whatever the hell was in there, from catfish to bass to baby gators, whatever would.
Didn't we have a conversation on how you actually may have single-handedly started the infestation of snakehead?
Oh, yeah, that was that. So yes. So I had cut. So it's still to this day, I don't know if that's what it was. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It was a fish when I was a kid that I was like, oh, like what is this thing? You kind of break off the line and you throw it back, And it's funny. I had that conversation with my dad a few months ago. He was
No
like, "Oh,
shit.
I don't know," because it wasn't even he wasn't there. It was just me and one of the other neighborhood kids from
That's
around the
wild.
canal. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I might be patient zero for that. But
That's freaking great.
what's that movie? Outbreak with Cuba Gooding
Yes.
Jr. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I'm the monkey with the snake head. Yeah, yeah. So man, so fast forward, I joined the military. I've been in the military almost 22 years now.
Jeez.
That's my full-time job. I do it active. And I kind of took a little bit of a break from fishing for a handful of years, quite a few years, just because, doing that, I was deploying like crazy. I did back-to-back deployments to Iraq, came home, uh, went to a bunch of schools for training and whatnot, then headed
Oh
over to
yeah.
Afghanistan and, kind of had to take a break from fishing. And not that I had it just I took a break from fishing. And
Yep.
I came home, met my wife, who is best thing that ever happened to me, and we had a couple cocktails and decided, let's start a business. And she's like, what business would you start? I'm like, man, I always wanted to own like a tackle shop.
Yep.
And next day we we're signing a lease on a building and opening up a tackle shop, not knowing what the hell we were doing. And that's how Old Glory Outdoors was born. And yeah, that's how Bobby and I met. In I
Oh
I
yeah.
was I was an OG listener to the show back in the day.
Yeah.
Like Bobby
You were one
said,
of
it was
that first round of
yeah,
guests that we had on.
yeah. I was OG. I just reached out, I was like, man, like he's trying to build his podcast. I'm trying to build my new tackle shop, and let's fucking work together. You know what I mean? And
Oh
it,
yeah.
it was a great thing. And yeah, man, Old Glory Outdoors will always be in my heart. Unfortunately, my wife, I mean, those of you who went to OGO, you guys all know Meg. She was the boss there. She ran
Yeah.
that place. And unfortunately, she picked up a new position, a new career. My job was getting busy again, and we just didn't have the time for it anymore. And we always said once it kind of starts to boil over to the personal life and the home life, and we just can't keep up anymore, that's when we're gonna pump the brakes and put a stop to it.
Yep.
Um, it was bittersweet. It was tough. It was an extremely hard decision.
Oh
I
yeah, man.
all my close personal friends, who some of them are in here, I called them directly, and to include you, Bobby, and was like,
Yeah.
hey, I gotta put a stop to it. And but man, OGO was the shit. I loved it. Everything. I'll miss it. I think I just did a little too early, because I still have, I'm still not quite at retirement. So who knows what'll happen when I retire. But
Yeah.
yeah, but OGO is kind of where that's kind of where I got that itch to the tournament fish. The bass fish. I met so many tournament anglers while being at
Hmm.
OGO, and I dipped my feet in that. I started with the aluminum series while I was in my tracker deep V that was not a tournament boat by any means, but it was the boat that I could get all the kids in, and one day we could bass fish, the next day we could troll for trout, and then the next day we could go tubing. So
A little bit
it
of
was
everything,
yeah, it was a little bit of everything, and
Yeah.
that was the best for us at the time. But I had to take that step to where I was like, yeah, man, like I'm really loving this bass fishing stuff. And I decided to take the leap into, the big boy stuff. And especially, fishing for me, and we've talked about this privately, Bobby, but fishing
Hmm.
for me was like a huge, you know, having deployed a bunch of times, having to, deal with some, personal issues.
Hmm.
Um, Man, fishing leveled me out. with
was
mental health and everything. And,
yeah.
it's that was my deal. And it was it's just kind of what grounded me. And
Yep.
I still have that competitive nature in me, so I would go out and fish to kind of get level headed. I was like, well, I'm still a competitive person. So how can
Oh
I,
yeah.
how can I mesh the two? So yeah, I started off with so what was it, last year, the year before? I started in with ABA.
Mm-hmm.
I did well with American Bass Anglers, making it to the national championship that we've talked about on the show.
It's freaking
And
awesome.
man, it's just like now I just want to constantly go next level.
Yeah.
Um, I'm kind of grounded with chains because I still am active duty military, so I don't have the time to put in quite as much as I'd like to the fishing.
Yep.
I'll be retiring here fairly soon. So my goal right now, because my wife does a great job and providing for us, and
Mm-hmm.
with my retirement and whatnot, I really want to pursue it full time.
You
But
should do it.
man, yeah,
Send that motherfucker.
I know, we'll see what happens.
I'm
And
a terrible influence, dude. Look at
oh
your
god,
truck. I'm the
oh,
worst. I'm the worst human.
Bobby is part of the reason I have the truck that I have now. Terrible. You know what? Being a big boat tournament angler in these,
Yep.
these high level tournaments, it just the number one thing it means is I am terrible financially. I make
Oh
terrible
yeah.
financial decisions, and it's just kind of that, like, trying to break even. But man, no, it was an honor for me to get to ask to come on the show last year. The February being my debut at the Springfield Sportsman Show,
Mm-hmm.
because a couple people talked about it a little bit when we were down in Columbus, Ohio.
Yep.
And man, I am naturally like an extreme introvert. Like
Mm.
I am not an open, person. But this podcast forced me kind of get out of my shell, and I love doing it. I
Yeah.
love coming out of my shell. I love meeting new people. I mean, God, we all lived together down in Columbus for a few days. Had a great time down there. And being a part of the podcast has really just opened up a new door for, myself personally,
Yep.
mentally, emotionally.
Yeah.
And it's been phenomenal. I absolutely love it. I look forward to it every week. Um, we miss Sean. We miss Sean
Oh
dearly
yeah.
already,
Yeah.
but we're just on to, doing what we do together, whether we have guest hosts in the future. It's
Yep.
just it's just the new jigs and bigs. We're gonna do bigger and better like we always do, and we can't wait to grow with all of you guys.
Hold on a second. This is great. Dan Griffin chimes in and says, "Don't worry, Bobby. Joe is the reason for my new boat last year. He is just as bad. I think that the two of us make for one hell of a dynamic
Yeah,
duo."
yeah,
That
yeah.
situation.
We're like the best, worst partners ever.
Oh my God. It is. You guys are fucked. Call us for advice and we're gonna send you. Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh
yeah. I'm
yeah,
just gonna tell you to buy the most expensive thing because that's what you need to win a tournament.
you gotta send it, you know?
It,
You just
man,
gotta send it, dude.
it, it's it's because I did well last year, and Dan and Dan Griffin. So Dan Griffin, we'll talk about him real quick because he is part of the reason why I really got into there, because him and I grew up together. We
Yep.
kind of we went our separate ways as we became adults, and OGO kind of brought us back together, and he was
That
part of
shit's
the
the
reason
best.
I came into a certain tournament scene. And uh and now I finished a lot higher than him in the national standings last year. So
Oh, look
yeah,
at
he's
that.
gonna say because he didn't get to go to nationals and the 2-day championship because he was doing family stuff. Well, you just gotta figure out his priorities. Yeah, you know what? Just because he has his priorities straight and I don't, look where we are in the results
It's
now.
true. It's true. Pat
I
Martin
love you,
chimes in. He
Dan.
goes, as of today, Pat Martin officially owns an 88 Bass Tracker. He says, I actually have a lot of anxiety about getting into tourney fishing, dude, I can understand. A great place to kind of get your feet wet a little bit is to dabble in that multi-species scavenger hunt, until you build up that confidence and you're like, okay, cool, we got this together. You know what I'm saying? Ultimately, I think go ahead.
Bobby, we've talked about this several times.
Yep.
Who is the person you always scared of the most when you pull into a tournament?
That old dude with that piece of shit boat that's just been fishing that
The
spot.
guy in the
That's what
80s,
he does.
90s tracker. That's a guy you fear the
Yep.
most at every tournament.
I will say this, Pat. I'll bet you that boat has some good mojo on it. Being that age, I'll bet you it does. Good for you, man. Oh, that is so awesome. And I'll buy the beer and the gas. Let's go fish.
Yeah. Yep.
Rock and roll. Dude, I think that this show, obviously, I want to see this grow, and I realize that, we have a big pocket of listeners that are right here in the Northeast. We get to actually engage with them, not just online, through comments and they're familiar with the spots that we fish and things like that, but also while we're fishing. We'll bump into folks. The other thing that makes our show so really unique is that we really are kind of like that morning show kind of vibe.
Sure. Yeah. We just swear more.
We swear a ton. And we're here, we want to entertain you primarily, first and foremost.
Yeah. Yep.
And we know that along with that, there's learning that's going to come along the way. So we try to put as much value as we can into the show that way. So this first segment, lots of times, is us having conversations about what we're going through, what's happening in our lives, what our fishing is like. We're going to go through that in just a second. But then we also like to talk about, our engagements with other folks. But what makes us really unique is the live show experience.
Yeah.
Because now we've got 4 or 5 different live appearances under the Jigs and Bigs belt. And it's something I do every night. I do a live show, not a podcast. I host a game show every single night in bars and restaurants. This shit is so natural to me. It's ridiculous. Yes, it is. I love this, Pat. I love this.
You know what we are, Bobby? We're like the late 1990s, maybe early 2000s. Yeah. We're the Howard Stern of fishing podcast.
Dude, I'm glad you brought that up. I never wanted these words to leave my mouth, but Armando from Bass Kayak and Beers.
Yeah.
When I was on that show, this is a couple of months ago, I was on his show and he was like, Bobby Roast Beef, you are the Howard Stern of bass fishing podcasts. And I'm here to say he's not wrong.
Yeah.
That's the role I want to play. So we do want to entertain you. We want to give you guys some good tips. We want to engage. The most important thing I think that we've learned above anything is that even though fishing is great, it's cathartic. It can bring you and center you and solve a lot of the mental shit that goes on in your head just dealing with everyday life. The fishing community is one of the greatest parts. And even though it can sometimes look like it's at opposite ends, you see folks arguing about forward-facing sonar, you see folks arguing about bait companies, that's just human nature. It's going to kind of split a little bit like that. But by and large, the fishing community at the end of the day, when it's not leaving comments, arguing with one another on a Facebook group or something, we help each other out. You know what I mean? We're generally I was out on the water recently and I want to throw this out there because one of our segments that we do in the center segment is, the middle segment is called FTG. It's Fuck That Guy. And essentially it is a place where you can sort of get something off your chest that's been an issue. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Somebody that's been kind of, and obviously it makes more sense if it's a fishy, related story or something. And recently, we mentioned these guys. I refer to them as the trout guys, or oh no, I think was it Dave Urkey? I think it was Dave Urkey, the Wolf from Walmart, had said that the moniker for those dudes are STDs, stalking truck dudes.
Oh yeah, the chasers. It's
you know what I mean?
It's like lawyers. It's like budget lawyers chasing ambulances, man.
Exactly. I will say this, though, about those dudes, and I complain about them all the time. One of the things that I didn't talk about this, and I kind of wanted to hold it for this show, is that one of these dudes is fucking loud as shit. He is so goddamn loud. And for a trout angler, I'm like, that's not like them. You know what I mean? They're usually the ones that are just like, hey, all right, they can hear you walking.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up. Be quiet.
You know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah.
It's the bass anglers that are just like fucking loud as shit. No, this guy is so fucking loud. And I heard him talking with the other guys, and there was a guy who shows up and fishes this pond. No, he doesn't even fish this pond. I'm sorry. He's a woodworker. He's in his like mid 70s, maybe 80. He's been around a long time, and he makes kayaks and canoes. And he
Interesting.
came out and he was out paddling one day, and I guess he left his paddle. Like he made this wooden paddle. He left it at the what do you call it? He left it on the side of the ramp, like just off in the grass. And this
Right.
guy found it and was like, I know who this belongs to. And he's like, I'm going to keep it. I don't know whose number it is. He put a sign up on the board, like at the ramp, that, hey, if you lost his paddle, call me. And the guy came back and he saw it because he was there fishing
Yeah.
with another boat. And he saw the sign and was like, oh, yeah, okay. So he took the thing off the board. And this dude happened to be there fishing. And he was like, hey, man. He's like, I know you. He's like, did you lose a paddle over here? He's like, yeah. He's like, that's me. I put that there. I was there and the dude came back and gave it to him. And I was like, that's the kind of shit when the STDs, the stocking truck dudes, are like fucking giving back to the community despite all of our differences. Like, that's what the fishing community is all about, is shit like that. I love how John Higgins chimes in here. He goes, I think it's the cussing and the real talk that keeps me following. Dude, I agree, because we're not trying to like sterilize this or, you know, try to not offend or
not
anything.
at all.
It's like, you know, I mean, I'm not saying that we don't give a shit about what you care about.
Yeah.
We do, like, you know, and obviously we have our limits and things that we don't talk about this on this show intentionally.
And it's what I think where this show kind of sets itself apart from others is,
Yep.
you know, so many shows are reaching out to get that top tier guest every time, or quote unquote top tier guest.
Yep.
But a big thing that we do, we don't care if you're a bank angler, a kayak angler, a fly fisherman, a big boat, big tournament angler. We don't care if you have socials or if you have 1 million followers. You know, we just look to what we want to do is we want to learn from you, hear your techniques, have a conversation, and just talk fishing. Talk fishing, food, drink, whatever. But there's nothing saying that someone who has 1 million followers, has been in the Elite Series for 15 years, is going to have a better conversation with you who just likes to hit the river every once in a while, hates Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, refuses to have them. I can learn just as much from you as I can from the other guy. And
Of course.
and that's what sets us apart. And that's one thing that everyone out there needs to understand is, like, you know, it's, if you want to be a guest, you want to talk to us, reach out, let us know, you know, because we do not discriminate. And you know, I want to, because some of the biggest hammers are the guys that just hit the bank every once in a while. I don't care if you throw shiners, worms, you know, jigs. We don't care. It's just the community coming together from, you know, all walks of earth.
And I think that's the most important thing. It's like everybody's story has value. You know what I mean? Like you can learn the smallest detail. It might be a comment about like, oh, hey, so I fished this area and this is where I would go get breakfast afterwards. I ask everybody all the time because that's the shit that I want to know.
Because I'm a fat fuck. That's why.
But I ask these people this stuff because I feel like everybody can relate to that. You know what I mean?
Of
And there's a little
course.
bit of value. It's always a good thing. Dan Griffin chimes in here. He goes, that's what I like when I fish the Cape Cod Canal. People are honest and they take pics and post expensive lost stuff. That is unbelievably cool. Very, 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 very cool.
Right. It's, man, the fishing community is, you know, 85% positive.
100%.
You know, you have that 15% who are just a bunch of douchebags, just a-holes, just kind of make the entire community look bad. Just like any other, you know, any other career, any other, you know, job or activity, you're always going to have that 15% of just total a-holes that make everybody else look bad. And the unfortunate thing is that that's what a lot of people focus on from outside of the community.
Yeah.
But man, it's most of the time people pull together to you know, to do it together.
So we just got a comment on Instagram here, and I can't put it in the video. It's just not integrated there yet. But Dangling for Dinks had said, love your content. The stories and the information you all provide are top tier. I appreciate that, man. That's exactly what we're trying to do, is just share as many stories as we can. And if people can learn some stuff, they'll go ahead and learn some stuff. Um, that's freaking awesome. So that's what this show is about. That's who we are, as anglers. Like, I mean, we're bringing the stuff to the table. Some folks had asked me, they're like, oh, you're kind of like reforming, or like, you're sort of like starting a brand new sort of era of jigs and bigs. What are you going to do with the old episodes? And to them, my answer is nothing. They're going to stay right where they are, at least for the time being, until I have to move them. And then I think I'm probably going to like archive them on the Patreon so that the jig heads will get 100% access to them. So I think that could be really, really good.
John Hagen's just said a saying really that I absolutely love, that I am going to use from now on. That is, especially in the military, that is perfect.
Right? He says, you could have a golden toilet, but people will still focus on the shit in it. Fucking A. And this is what I'm saying.
Love
Mr.
it.
Higgins, that was beautiful. It was fucking beautiful. Vidal, how you doing, Vidal? I hope all is well. We got Ryan Stager in here. Says, is Midsummer Mayhem coming back? Had fun last year. Midsummer Mayhem is coming back. I am going to try to squeeze it in so it can happen one in June. So it's not going to have the Midsummer Mayhem name. But I want to do one in June, and I want to do one, I'm thinking, in September. I'd like to try to do 2. The freaking icons are back, man. Love you, dudes. You guys are awesome.
Oh, I got a new computer. Does it work with me now?
Oh, you do? Oh, does it? So point your thumb so that they're down like that.
Oh, I'm just not doing it right. I don't know, dude. I don't know. My kids aren't old enough to show me this shit yet.
Yeah. Oh, what am I doing? I'm making.
Wait, you did thumbs up.
I did thumbs up. That was an easy one.
I don't know.
Maybe. Oh, you probably got our.
And we just lost all of our viewers.
Well, have a good night, folks. It was pretty awesome. It is. I will say this: like, I'm not a big live stream guy, primarily, and this is the reality of it. My internet sucks. It really does. So my method of podcasting is to record everything local, which is what I'm doing here. I can put the pieces together to make it work. If everything goes to shit, I can fix it. I can always go back and make it work and make some stuff happen. But it's this is actually very cool. Like, I do love the engagement and having folks in there. So if you like this kind of stuff, we actually offer. We have a Patreon. And there's going to be eventually coming soon. We'll have multiple tiers, but we currently have one tier. It's a $5 a month subscription. It gets you access to all of our episode recordings so that you can jump in and be a part of it here. I think this is the best way to do it. You go ahead and jump on and watch the show as it's happening, but also comment and be a part of it, because we'll engage with you like this right here. And Des 13, that's Nick. He says, I crawled my way over here from Insta. Let the shenanigans begin. Fuck yes, my friend. So that's one of the
$5 a month is less than what you pay for a freaking beer at the bar these days.
Holy, Jesus.
And you get this every week, and you get to see us F up when we screw up. You get to see it live. You get to see us talk about the beauty of this, and like, when Sean was on here. God, I feel like Sean died or something. God rest his soul. But Sean's still around. But we will give out notes of like what we're going to talk about, but we don't go into depth for that. So
that's exactly it.
So we are learning from each other at the same time that we hope that you guys are learning from us and that we learn from you. So man, you guys get to see it. The video, you get to see us talk at what would be commercial breaks on the podcast, and you guys get to see what we're talking about, what we're screwing up, what we're not
and
screwing
engage,
up,
and then be a part of the finalized product. Because we talk about you guys and talk with you guys, and some of these, like, I love it when folks, and I have a feeling this is going to pop up and coming up after we recap our weeks as far as fishing stuff goes. I think we're going to have some folks chiming in and asking some questions, and that's the best part, because then you get that instant sort of gratification. But then, like, if you miss it, you've got the archived fact that it's available on the podcast platform. You can go back and listen to it anytime you want. It's freaking unbelievable. We've been going almost an hour just talking about this stuff. Why don't we shift gears and review our weeks? Joe, it has been killing me to know what the first send in the boat has been like. You tell me what your entire week was like first, and then
I did notes, everybody. This is a new and improved who the F is Joe Brown. I put into the notes that just so everyone knows, Bobby sends us notes every single week. I read them, but I very rarely put anything in them. It's a new me. Now I put my notes in there so Bobby can kind of see how shitty my week was as well. But you know, right from the get-go. But man, I'm still in the military. I still work full time. I worked Monday through I worked Monday through Wednesday. Boring. No one wants to hear about that. Let's move on. Thursday was a day. Thursday, I loaded up the boat, got it ready. I have my boat in storage still, because it's not, you know, the tournament season doesn't start until next week. We'll talk about that at the end of my little spiel here from my week. But yeah, so I went up and I grabbed my dog. We had an Emma Daddy Day. I grabbed her.
Very good.
I kept her out of school. My daughter's 5
Nice.
for you that for those of you who don't know. Usually when we do Emma Daddy Days, I bring her somewhere like wicked cool. Like we'll go to like a big one's the zoo. We'll go to the aquarium. No, not this week. This week I brought her to storage where my boat is, and
There you go.
we loaded up the boat with all the fishing gear. She wasn't that impressed. I was excited. That's extremely exciting for me, getting the boat
yeah.
ready. She didn't even have her tablet. She was pissed. But she came on the boat, you know, she ended up you know, opening up to it, you know, and she helped me out. But it's you know, all my gear, I store all my gear in my little tackle dungeon, and it was time to get it all out and into the boat. So I did that. That was, man, that took up a good portion of my time. Sunday, make sure all the graphs are good, everything turns on. Good to go there. I just had that bank charger installed from JCS Marine. Shout out to John from JCS Marine. They are phenomenal, awesome. They are
unbelievable.
Yep, they are. That's who does all my stuff to my boat now, and I will never turn back. So if you're looking for something for your boat, whether it's a bass boat, ocean boat, whatever, check out JCS Marine down in was it New Greenwich, Rhode Island.
Yep.
Anyway, so Thursday I did that, and then Friday was the day. Friday was the day I splashed it. I woke up at I knew it was going to be chilly. So I woke up at a normal time. I was going to go out a little bit later on. So I woke up probably like 7:38, you know, normal time. I look at my phone. It is 22 degrees out of my house.
Yep.
I was like, shit. Like, and Bobby, I wasn't going to go out. I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. This cold of weather, the fish, you know, especially after all the wind, whatever, the fish aren't going to be biting. But, I had to do it because I had to get all the cobwebs out of the boat because tournament starts next week. And I don't know that I'm going to have the time to do that before then. So I went and splashed it. I was going to do some content from the new YouTube channel that I'm working on and have been doing, and trash content. And I'm going to tell you why. So I went to a local spot here. Just I originally was going to go pre-fish for the tournament for next week. I did not want to drive an hour and a half. Kind of the way this weather is. So it wasn't worth it to me. So I went somewhere local. I get there and there's like you know, any vegetation is on the shore. It's just completely frozen. You have the old guys, the old retired guys that they sit at this boat ramp and just watch the water all day. I don't know why. That's probably going to be me someday. And then I'll understand why. I'll understand why they do it, but still to this day, I don't understand why they do right now.
Just sitting there drinking a coffee, filling a colostomy bag.
Looking at me, pull up in the skeeter like I'm an absolute fucking lunatic. And I was because I pull up and it is, I mean, the wind's kind of where I went. The wind's kind of blowing a little bit.
She was blowing on freaking Friday, dude.
Yeah. So I get out. I literally throw on. So normally I have my my winter stuff. Not my winter stuff. My like cold weather gear that I got from Sims. You know, it's awesome gear. I love it. But it was too cold for that stuff. So I literally broke out my military Arctic gear. Threw that
was
on.
that bad?
Oh yeah, it was that bad. So I threw out I threw on my military Arctic gear. I splashed the boat, within all the ice crystals around. I'm like, I get it out, like, cool, everything fires up, whatever. Right off the bat, I have an issue with the boat.
That's no
So
good.
for those of you, tournament bass boats, you have your trim and your jack plate on your blink. There, we call them blinker switches.
Yep.
Jack plate's good. For some reason, my trim blinker is not working.
Oh.
It's okay because on my throttle, it still works. I still have a button on my throttle. It works.
Oh, so you can adjust it there. So
Yeah,
the mechanics are still working. It's just a switch.
yeah, exactly. And it's
Gotcha.
working everywhere else. It's just something with that blinker. I'm probably gonna make Dan come down and help me with it because he's a lot better. I am not a mechanic by any means.
Yeah.
I am that guy that pays for everyone to do my shit because I am stupid with that stuff.
It's smart though to recognize that because I'm the same way.
Yeah. And I talked to Josh Codier. I actually talked, who we've had on a guest here, so I've become good friends with. I talked to him and he kind of like broke it down. He's like, okay, is it working at the motor? Because there's a switch on the motor for the trim up and down. I'm like, yes. He's like, cool. Is it working on the throttle? I'm like, yep. It's just not the blinker switch. I guess there's something with those TH Marine blinker switches where they could come loose, whatever, fuse.
Yeah.
So it's actually an easy fix. It's just finding the time to do it before the tournament.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
if not, I'll be fine. But it's still frustrating. You pay that much money for a boat and you're like, fuck, dude. Like, and I wish I had noticed it because I just had my boat down at John's JCS Marine.
Yeah, exactly.
So I literally would just had him do it in probably fucking 4 minutes.
Yeah.
But so we set up there. I get up, I hit the throttle, I go on plane, my nose and my snots and my tears start freezing. So came off the throttle and I putted to my spot. I was like, oh no, we're not doing this.
Nipples just shredded.
Oh my god, dude! Shirt. Instantly, I was instantly like when you're fucking. You remember when your kids were younger? They come in from playing out in the snow and their snots, all that. Yeah. It was instantaneous, and then they were freezing. I was like, oh no, I'm not doing this. Thank God it's a small lake where I can just putt to it. So I get to my first spot, and it's my favorite spot on this lake, and I start throwing to it. Dude, I throw first cast. I start and it's maybe 25 now.
Yeah.
I start reeling in. I look at my reel's kind of acting a little fucky and a little screwy. And I look and my reels are freezing up. They're collecting ice. I look at my guides. My guides are collecting ice. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, man. Like, dude, I shouldn't even have fished. I should have just made sure everything was good with the boat, checked all the sonar and everything. Live scope was good, all that. And then I should have packed it in and load it back up. But I tried to fish for probably about an hour. I absolutely destroyed a spool of line because it was frozen when I went to cast it. And then it kind of was like stuck and then it just beelined out and it just absolutely bird nested. So to the point where I had to replace it. But screwing around, all I caught it. And what I will say is in that the water temperature was about 38 degrees. It went from
that low.
It was 38.7.
So this is wild, dude. So you went out on Friday.
Yep.
I went out the Friday before. And I had temps that were like 51.
38.7. I looked at it because I knew the temps had been up and they were like the temps had been up in like perfect, like jerk bait, like the time. It was the time.
It was on. Yeah.
Oh no. We had a little setback. And I couldn't believe it. And so I'm looking at live scope and they kind of, because once you're in that 50, that high 40s, low 50s, they start suspending a little bit. They start moving around and I could see that they were back belly down on the bottom. They were just kind of like chilling there, not moving for anything. In that hour, all I caught was a a friggin' huge white perch off of a brush pile that I usually hit.
What was the body of water like depth wise and like size that you were at?
So I'll just tell you where it was. I was at
All right.
Quabog out in Brookfield.
Oh, okay. All right. All
Yeah,
right. All
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah. So that place is like pretty flat the whole way. So
Yeah.
I'm fishing 8 to 12 feet the
Yep.
whole
Okay.
time.
So similar depth to where I
Yeah, yeah,
was.
yeah. And so,
Huh.
but I was like, with that temperature, like it sucks when you get into that like high 50s, and I'm sorry, high 40s, low 50s because they start to move. And so I was like, maybe they started to move and that's where they are. So I'm gonna check the more not I knew they wouldn't be on the shore so much, but I tried to check it, going up there. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't seeing shit, dude. Every mark I saw was or what appeared to be a mark, they were on the bottom. They're just
Yeah.
belly
Just hugging
down.
it.
They're just like, yeah, they're just free. They're freezing. They were
No shit.
freezing. But yeah, so all I
Huh.
caught was that friggin' white perch. My butt actually Jay Manning, who, great friend of the show,
Oh yeah.
he texted me as I was going to another spot. He's like, "Oh, hey, I saw your truck. I drove by the boat ramp. Like, how you hitting them?" I'm like, "Well, I'm not, and I'm really cold."
Yeah.
And he just texted me beer question mark. And I said, "Yup." And I
Yeah.
turned it around. I put it back on the trailer, and we met for a beer, or two or three.
That's
So
sometimes the move though.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
wild.
So it was I did that, and but I got to splash it. I got to knock the cobwebs out.
Yep.
I would rather have figured out the blinker trim then than I would, tournament day.
Very true.
Yeah, so I did that. I splashed it, and man, the weekend Saturday we had absolute freaking typical New England like fake spring weather where it's just like
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden it's winter again and there's like snow and ice and all that bullshit. So I didn't leave my house once yesterday.
Yeah.
And I did some
That's what
video
my day was
editing.
yesterday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude. I did some video editing, like put some stuff in the shoot for my socials.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sunday was like, or today was like kind of a family day. We just hung out with the
That's awesome.
wife and Emma, and we went and did some errands, went to BJ's, waited in the line for about 45 flipping minutes to check out. And then now we're here on the podcast.
One hell of a day, man. One
Yeah, dude.
hell of a week.
Yeah, dude. Typical. Yeah. So that was my week in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Boats in the waters. No fish to talk about because New England can't figure itself out and is bipolar. But here we go.
So I had a very different week than you did, which I didn't realize. I think I for some reason I thought you got on some fish. So my week was a little bit nuts. Monday was basically just edit the show, prepare for work, get all that stuff done. Tuesday, I had considered going out, but like conditions, I'll tell you what, like this weather comes in and it happens every winter. Like I get so lazy. It's so difficult for me to just pull myself outside and go and do anything. But I'm like, Tuesday was just nothing. Wednesday, I did get out and I had one hell of a day. It was a day where I was just like, you know what? I got the itch. I want to go out. And it was a nice day. We had, I believe on Wednesday, we had relatively clear skies, but we had some wind. Nothing like we had on Thursday. Thursday was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Thursday was windy enough to keep me out entirely. Now, I did a bank send on Wednesday. And I went to a spot nearby to me where I fish pretty routinely. It's got great multi-species. In fact, it actually has a more diverse amount of species than I ever had realized. So I go out there and I caught a total of 6. They were 3 largemouth. Biggest one was about 14 inches, nothing crazy. Smallest one was just an absolute little 8-inch Dinkmeister, like adorable. You know what I mean? The rest were all rainbow
Just a cute
stockers.
little fish. Just a cute
Just
little
like,
bass.
oh, you know what I mean? One of those. And I caught, but they were all biting, and they were biting generally more shallow. Now, this one area that I fish over here is the northwest corner where it's generally going to be warmest. So I try to target that stuff again.
Sean the Fisherman tip number 1.
at work. And then I was like, okay, so we got some wind blowing. I'm going to throw, and I've been really into throwing these really finessey. So from like full disclosure, I've almost exclusively, when I've been doing bank sends, only fishing BFS, because I've built a little box that has a little bit of everything in there. So I can throw bladed jigs that are, super light, super tiny. I can throw swim jigs. I can throw finesse swim baits. I can throw jerk baits. I've got cranks. I've got a bunch of different. I've got spinner baits, small, tiny spinner baits that I can downsize, keep downsize and throw. And I've just got options to play with. So I was like, all right, so what do I want to do? Well, this year, and we're going to talk about this, but like I've been saying to folks as I've been talking with them, each year I kind of look at a different a presentation that I might not be the most schooled with, or I might not have that level of confidence. And there's a bunch of those. I have some baits that I'm very confident in, but I realize that there's a time and a place for everything. Like I can't just go and throw a swim jig forever. I can't go and throw a swim jig and a drop shot everywhere. You know what I mean? Like I could, and I probably would get bit, but maybe not. You know what I mean? So again, I'm on that journey to become the whole angler. I love finesse fishing. I know that's not a popular thing. Yeah. I love finesse fishing. I love small, compact baits, intricate little presentations. I also love the added challenge of being like, I've got a 4 fucking pound leader and I just hooked a 16-inch largemouth. Like I have to make this work, or a large chain pickerel. And I'm like, this line could be gone. I really do enjoy that finesse fishing style. It's just always something I've been slowing down has been easy for me, So I go and I'm like, we got some wind. I think, when did I start throwing? I think I might have even actually had one of these small Jackal Darabreak bladed jigs tied on, which is what I was throwing. And oddly, the trailer that I had put on was just out of, I don't want to say necessity, but I had forgotten some of my other plastics. And after this trip, I had made a change, but I had only had some 2-inch easy shiners on me. So I put these trailers on this bladed jig. And I found that all the bass were like, this one area, it has like a pretty good drop off right off the bank. Like there's a little riprap that comes over and then it just drops right down. And it leads into like the deepest part of the lake. But on that more shallow end, I was catching all my bass. A little bit further out, I was catching all my trout. They were eating the same thing. And they were chasing like crazy. So it was one of these situations where in this area that I fish, especially from the bank, gets hammered because it's super easy access. You can park right there. There's docks that come out that you can actually walk down and fish from, which gives you a much better vantage point than like trying to like fish over the railing that goes around on the sidewalk and everything, So I'm taking full advantage of that. Now I caught those 6. There was these 2 dudes. And they're walking around and they're just throwing a bunch of like conventional size baits, not getting bit at all. And I was in that same situation. I had changed up my retrieve a little bit. And that's when they started hitting, and they started hitting hard. So I was like, okay, so we'll slow this down a little bit. Well, I was almost dragging it on the bottom. You know what I mean? Letting it flutter up, stopping, letting it flutter up, then stopping it. And it was absolutely dynamite. These guys they're watching me and they're like,
okay, we suck. What are you doing?
So I went and I gave him basically the breakdown. I was like, so I'm throwing like finessey stuff, but almost like finessey power fishing techniques. Like, I'm just using them very, very slowly. And I was like, this just seems to work for what's going on. I was like, we've got some wind, there's some chop, and they are chasing this. This is good. So I had a great day on Wednesday. I left. I went to work that night, felt great about it. It was just unbelievable. I'm like, I have this theory that if I catch fish that day, that following night's trivia night is just going to be amazing. And hey, guess what? It's 100% true, because Wednesday was amazing at Nathan Bill's. We had a great time. It was a blast. So fast forward a little bit. And Thursday, the wind was blowing ridiculous. It was stupid. Again, I'm bank fishing and I'm primarily... I'm sticking to BFS.
It's like up to 40-mile-an-hour gusts on Thursday.
It was stupid. It was like scary. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to go out there. So Thursday, I was like, nope, not going to happen. Now, I had a conversation with former guests that we had on the show, Eric Dowd. We call him Moose. Eric is a great guy. Like he's a great dude. When there was a time in the Bobby roast beef story where I was just so frustrated with fishing that I was like, you know what? I said to Paul, I was like, I don't think I'm gonna do this anymore, man. I don't understand it. I'm not like getting any better with it, and it's all I'm doing is just throwing away a bunch of tackle, and it was a real problem for me. Eric was a big force in me realizing I was being a little bitch and getting back off the horse and then actually going and sending it. So every so often we only fish a couple of times a year, but I had had been talking with him. He was like, "Hey man, if you ever want to go out," and he's like, "I saw you've been just absolutely killing some trout." He's like, "So if you ever want to go and do like the Swift River or something like that," he's like, "I'm game. I'll take my canoe and we can go and we'll have a blast with it." I was like, "Okay, cool." Well, then I started looking at the weather and I was like, dude, I'm like, it's fucking 20 something degrees. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's so cold. Now I had to be up early to drive my youngest to her school, which is up in the hill towns. And it
Right.
was even colder there. I was like, man. And we had a little bit of wind.
Yeah.
But I was like, do I really want to do this? So I message Eric when I get back to the house. I'm like, look, I'm getting my stuff set up. I said, I'm handling a few things. I was like, I can meet you like about 8:30 or so. But I go, I'm thinking maybe we just do a bank send, dude. Like, let's just not be stupid. And he was
Sure.
like,
That's tough in a kayak, man. 40-mile-an-hour winds.
yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
And in the area where we would have been in the Swift, we actually
Yeah.
would have been down really low. So we probably
Yeah.
would have been shielded by quite a bit of that.
Yeah.
Come to find out, Eric was over at his girl's place and was like, I'm not even around there, dude. He's like,
Yeah.
I fished the exact same spot I fished on Wednesday. I was like, I'll just meet you there. Let's go ahead and do that. So this is what's crazy, man. I go over and I've got this bladed jig still tied on.
Mhm.
So I start, and again, like this, we're going to talk about. I was like, I wanted to start with the most like obnoxious. It was where I was, it was almost dead calm when I got there. The wind did pick up slowly, but it was almost dead calm when I got there.
Right.
So I'm making casts and I got a follow. I got a pretty good follow. And I was like, oh shit. Okay. And the largemouth actually had come up from down the bottom and came up to swipe at my bait, but didn't. I was like, okay, I'm thinking. I'm like, what can I do here? What should I do here? And I was like, let's keep the action, right? Let's keep that same trailer, that 2-inch easy shiner. But let's add some secondary action that isn't as aggressive as that blade. So maybe we'll eliminate the blade and we'll leave something with a skirt. So I put on a Kitech micro jig, right? Same weight, just simple green pumpkin with this easy shiner. And I started working that second or third cast. And this is what fucking blew my mind. I got bit by a crappie. I landed this crappie. Now Eric had to run because he had forgotten something, and he had to take off. And he was gone 5 minutes. And I texted him a picture. Right before he left, we were having a conversation. I was like, you know, dude, lately there's been like a lot of young kids who have been fishing here, and I talk to everybody that comes by. I love them. And he's like, dude, like a lot of these young kids are telling me that there's these great crappie in this body of water. Now I fish this body of water 2 to 3 times a week typically. I've never caught a crappie there, ever.
Until now.
I've never seen one. And I was like, I don't know what the hell they're talking about. This is crazy. So I caught one. I was like, holy fucking shit. I'm like, these kids might not be full of shit. I thought they were just bullshitting me. You know what I mean?
Or did you catch it on the fall, or were you dragging it?
It was on the fall.
Okay.
It was on the
fall.
fall.
I was going to say, if you were dragging it for a crappie, that'd be weird. But on the fall,
that would be weird.
Sense.
No, it was definitely on the fall. And because I had cast it out toward the deep end in that direction, and it was right on the fall, and my line was taken off. I reeled up on it. Boop. I was like, holy shit, that's amazing. So I send him the pic. I'm like, all right, that's pretty sweet. Between the two of us, he came back. He was like, holy shit, you're fucking on him. I caught, I don't even know how many largemouth, probably about a half dozen.
Yeah.
I caught 2 rainbows. Stalkers. I gave them to Eric because he's like, I'll make them for lunch.
What'd you catch those on?
The fucking micro jig.
So here, have they started stocking in the state?
Yes.
I don't follow it anymore. Okay. So I know
I was there the week before, and the stocking truck showed up, and the truck guys were like,
oh my God, I got an erection.
Yeah. So it's wild. I love to hear you catching stuff on artificials or catching the trout on artificials because one thing people don't realize is, and I think we have talked about it on the show, but just reiterate it is when trout are stocked, people are throwing power bait or whatever because
Yeah.
it's basically the concept is to imitate what they're getting
Used to
fed at the
eating.
what
Yep.
they're getting fed at the hatcheries and whatnot. But
Mhm.
between like anywhere from like 1 to 3 weeks into them being in these waters, they start to get those natural predatory instincts back.
Yep.
So it's a pretty quick turnover that these trout get back in that predator that predator motion to
Oh, yeah.
where they're now stalking their prey again. And so it's like, but people like just sit there with power bait and like just float power bait for fucking weeks on end. Like,
Mhm.
no, try that finesse stuff because they're
Dude.
once they're in there for a week or a few weeks, they're gonna start looking for those bait fish, those craws, like that stuff. Like they're predatory fish. They're
Oh,
they're
yeah.
not gonna be looking for that power bait shit anymore. So I love to hear that you're catching them on that stuff
Oh,
because
yeah, and
people just don't realize that.
trout have been like when people ask me, they're like, "What's the primary bait you're catching trout on?" And I'm like, "Swim baits, little swim baits,
Yeah,
tiny,
man.
tiny swim
Yeah.
baits." I mean, this is big compared
Yep.
to, but I have caught trout on this.
Yeah.
Like those small swim baits, like they want to eat bait fish. They want to eat a bunch of this stuff.
Yeah.
So I was killing them there. I managed to catch a bluegill on this, which I knew that micro jig is just fucking
Yeah.
magic.
Yeah. Yeah.
I knew that was gonna happen, and then Eric caught this fat yellow perch, like, not the longest yellow perch, like, wasn't something where we were like, "Oh, maybe it's a pin." It definitely wasn't, but this thing was, like, as fat as, like, my forearm. It was I think it ate a mouse. Like, it just looked like it ate, like, a fucking whole yolk
Wait,
rat.
what was it again? What
It was a
what
yellow perch.
species? Oh,
Yellow
Jesus.
perch. It was
Okay. All right.
huge, dude. And I'm like, it was just I mean, it had a Bobby roast beef belly. Like, this thing was enormous.
Nice.
And we got a picture, we doubled up. Like, it was crazy. Like, he and I, we never have days like this.
So
And
does that perch love jerky and stuffed pickles?
oh,
Is
I'm
that
sure he does. I'm sure he does.
and pickle seltzers?
Pickle seltzers, jerkies, and clamato. Mm. I'm sure that's his deal. But we had such a good time. It was absolutely amazing. The wind did pick up, and what we noticed was most of these bites were on Friday. They weren't I wasn't aggressively swimming this. I was letting this micro jig hit the bottom and then just hopping it. Now the crappie I got on the fall, that was a little bit different, but all the bass, it was exactly the same. Dropped it out, hop this a little bit, maybe do like a quick crank on the quick turn or two on the reel and then let it fall back down. The trout would get it when it was up off the bottom. The bass were hitting it right on the bottom, picking it up and running with it. And it was so nice to get on them. I had a blast. I love that combo. I really do. Do I think it's going to be like some kind of a game changer overall? No, I'm not putting my eggs in that basket, but I will
Yeah.
say it definitely makes fishing for these multi-species a whole lot of fun. A whole lot of fun. Um,
The BFS stuff, the finesse stuff, man, it's a blast. Like I love
it
doing
really
it.
is.
I don't typically like I've talked about before. I don't typically use my BFS setup in the tournaments because you have to take your time. Like you know how it is. You're just trying to get that fish on a fucking boat. So I don't use it a ton.
Oh yeah.
Unless it's like summertime, like in they're kind of like they're tough to catch anyway. I'll use them. But man, I don't care what anyone says about BFS. It is fun, dude.
It really is.
And you catch like the old multi-species, Joe
Yep.
Brown loves, still getting those crappie and those trout, so unexpectedly, and I actually my BFS reel is on its way back from getting repaired, so that'll be something we talk about because I'm gonna get a new rod for that. But
Oh, hell
yeah,
yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
for sure. That's what I love though about so Eric, it was funny. I think he was throwing an inline spinner and then he had started throwing a wacky rig. And once he saw me just killing him on these jigs, and I was like, I gotta know if it's
yeah,
me or if it's this
yeah,
bait. So I gave him one to tie on. And once he did, he started throwing that and fishing it the same way. And you don't need BFS
yeah,
gear to do this.
yeah.
He was throwing his stuff on his trout rod. You know, like I think he was throwing like a 7.3 medium light or something like that.
Yeah.
And
It just goes to show you, like in this cold weather, that they're still feeding down. You know what I mean? They haven't, they're feeding down. They're still kind of close to the bottom, and they haven't so much started feeding directly up yet. So
it's amazing to see, like it's coming together. It's slowly is coming together. So yeah, I mean, not a bad week. Not a bad week at all.
That's awesome. I wish I had a week like that with fishing.
And I turned each day into 2 really good reels. Put some really good content together. Like I'm trying to do more into creating like a visual element to stuff as well. And when I get full on into the kayak, where I'm in the kayak 3-4 days a week, again, I'm going to be putting the GoPro back on over my shoulder or on my hat. And I'm going to start putting some content together just to kind of put it up on YouTube and take some of that other stuff. I do have more content. Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it is.
Dude, you always forget and whatnot. And like,
oh yeah,
I did it all when I was on the boat the other day, but obviously didn't get shit because I didn't catch shit. But it's tournament season, man. It's tournament season. Next week, tournament season starts, and my kids will forget they have a dad.
Where are you next weekend?
So we are in Lakeville, Mass. So heading towards the Cape. It's actually the spot I did really well last year. I caught a nice fish there. But that was the heat of the summer.
Yeah.
So now
good time on the Cape. Like you could do really
that's
well
true.
On the Cape,
true. It's not quite on the Cape. It's like right after it's not quite the Cape, but it's like going out there. It's like past like Foxborough and stuff like that.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. But it's definitely going to be warmer temps than here
for sure.
And in the weather's looking like it's going to be in like the 50s.
That's awesome.
So Middleborough. No, it's actually in Lakeville, Dan. Gotta read a book.
Yeah, Dan. I do love John Hagen's comments, and he goes, some of my biggest smallies have come on 2-inch Bobby Garland crappie jigs. Dude, 100% believe that shit.
Yeah.
100%. I love finesse fishing. It is just out of this world. I can't get enough. I absolutely love it. Let's go ahead. So there is something that I had thrown into this as like a hot topic to talk about. And I bring it up only because it's something that I've noticed. I've been watching a lot of creators that are putting content out about their, pre-spawn baits, early spring baits, like stuff like in that window. And the bladed jig, chatterbait, whatever you want to call it, is showing up on everybody's list. It's one of those baits that there are anglers that will fish it year round. And it's a bait that I have struggled with a lot. As far as building like some real confidence. And it's not that I don't know how to fish it or anything. It's just that like often I'll throw it and use it as a search bait. And I'm like, all right, and I just don't put the time into it that I should. North Carolina changed that. I threw that chatterbait way more there than I ever did. And I mean, even if I could get a follow, because that's the thing, like what happened to me on Friday, that follow told me I needed to make some kind of a change. And if you can get a little bit of information like that, you can kind of figure out like, so what's going on? It didn't bite. What do I need to change? What do I need to switch up here?
Right.
And it can be really, really helpful. Joe, where are you when it comes to bladed jigs?
Yeah. So I'm kind of the same way. I have primarily used them as a search bait. I do love, and I learned this from Sean the Fisherman. God rest Sean the Fisherman on the Jigs and Bigs podcast. Pour one out for my homie. But man, I started doing really well running them parallel. Fucking 9th grade geometry. Run them parallel with weed edges, and I've done well there.
Yeah.
I did throw one, not looking to catch a fish, but I had a new setup for my bladed jigs I wanted to try out, and I did throw one for a couple minutes Friday, just to see the action. I threw a Picasso shock blade that I got from Dark Horse Tackle. Thanks to them.
Oh my God, yes.
I love the Picasso shock blades, man. And But you know what I put on as a trailer, Bobby? And it was like, I was like, this is gonna be a game changer.
What's
I
that?
put
I'm curious.
on I put on the Fish or Die Warbird, the smaller
Oh,
one. I cut the
yeah.
head a little bit. Oh my god, that action is insane. Insane. And
Ha.
yep, yep. Oh, you have the Jawbreaker too. The
The
Jawbreaker too
Jawbreaker.
from Bog Hog
Bog
Baits. I
Hog.
don't have
Yep.
that many left. I don't have that many Jawbreakers left.
I'll tell you, a
Um,
big thing for me with why I don't have that confidence with a bladed jig is that, again, it's a moving bait with an exposed hook.
yeah.
I, for the longest time, would just be losing them nonstop, especially as a bank
Oh,
angler.
sure.
I
Sure,
was
sure,
losing
sure.
them all the time. And part of that, I think, same thing with like spinner baits. Now I have a little bit
Yeah,
of a different relationship with spinner baits. Like I actually
yeah,
have a little bit of confidence. Like there is a time and a place where I'm like, yeah, I'm going to throw a spinner bait here. Like obviously, like a big, like Colorado blade at night, dark color.
yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Great. It's a great
Yep.
search bait. Exactly. Move it all around, try and get them. It's badass. I would fish like there's a spot in the Chicopee River where I would fish and I actually caught it. Just my PB smallmouth came from over there,
Yeah.
and I caught it on a chatterbait, a Z-Man original green pumpkin with a green green pumpkin kitech, super
Yeah, yeah.
easy. In this one area, there's a ton of rocks, and I was basically yo-yoing it off of the bottom, and I got bit my second or
Yep,
third cast. After that, got hung
yep,
up on some rocks, lost that jig. I have since
yeah.
become a lot better with not losing baits, especially if I'm in the boat, but even from the bank, I'm much better with it. Like it's more likely to happen on the bank
Right.
than it is from any type of a boat, but I'm still pretty okay with it.
Yeah.
I always kind of had wrestled like with what was the right rod
I
and
yeah.
reel combo.
I like to hear that you're yo-yoing it
Yeah.
because, that's a great thing to do because it's kinda like the blade bait, but
Hmm.
with, like, a little bit more of a profile and
Yeah.
you're not just getting that, that just the vibration with that smaller profile.
Hmm.
You're getting that little bit more movement, a little something that they see a little bit better. Now they're not just hearing it or feeling it, then they can actually see it. And it's
Yep.
essentially the same concept. So I like that you do that. I thought I was like one of the only people that did that.
So with my when it comes to throwing a bladed jig, I throw them on two different rods, and I
Yeah,
still haven't figured exactly what rod I like better than the other because they both have. Well, actually, one of these rods I just had swapped out for another one, a slightly
sure,
longer
sure.
7.3, 7 foot medium heavy. Now it's a
Yeah,
7.1. And I mean, each different brands of rods are gonna, what they say is a
yeah, yeah,
fast
yeah,
tip. It's
yeah,
gonna vary. It's like
yeah.
I have a 7.2 medium fast that I like to throw a lot of my moving baits on, basically where I'm not like jacking that hook. I don't need to. I could just put some
Sure.
pressure on. So for moving baits primarily, I'll use that or treble hook baits, stuff like that. If I'm throwing like a
Yeah,
rattle trap, I'll throw it on that combo or a square bill. Um, I've been typically for like conventional size chatterbaits, I've been leaning more toward half ounce all the time, generally.
yeah,
3/8, like of course you can fish those there. I know for like more shallow water, it's a good move. But I feel like with a half ounce, it's a nice middle of the road spot to hit where it also counts down really nice,
right,
where
right,
I
right,
can get
right.
it to a depth and say, like, okay, cool. I can count to like 5 and know that I'm 5 feet down. I can count to 8 and know that I'm 8 feet down, something like that.
Yeah,
Sean did teach me about counting it down, then finding where you find the weeds, and then working them this way. That's just
yeah.
again something I have to force myself to do more often. Speed of your reel, is I think there I've learned one of the things that I've heard from a lot of people, or one of the things I've taken away from the things that I've heard from other people is that I feel like the speed of your reel is primarily personal preference for the most part.
I agree 100%.
Yeah,
I agree 100%.
some people are going to do better with faster reels. Some people are going to do better with slower reels, and it is what it is. So I'm out there, and I'm counting bladed jigs as a whole. So
Yeah,
my 1/8 ounce bladed jigs I'm throwing on my BFS or my 3/16, I'm throwing those as like a primary focus. Like I'm trying to see if I can cover water with that when I'm fishing from the bank. And then once I'm in the boat, I'm throwing a bladed jig generally as like, let's find, and just the tip is going to reveal why I'm thinking that. But the chatterbait is just, it's obnoxious. You know what I mean? Like in the water.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. You can't deny its presence in the water. Like,
yeah,
you can't tell me that like a fish does not know it's there. You know what I mean? It rattles and creates so much intense vibration, especially when you start talking about those higher end bladed jigs like the Picasso shock blade. Like the Picasso shock blade is insane. I fished with that one from Dark Horse Tackle, and I went on their website and I discovered that you can buy them what they call bare naked, where it's just the painted head and
no skirt. Yeah,
I'm like, oh, and I bought a couple of their own colors to just try them out. Like there's a cool perch color that looks awesome, and I was like, yeah, we'll go ahead, we'll throw that. We're gonna go ahead and
there's just, last thing I'll say on that, there's just the shock blade is just for people out there, it's a little bit different than your let's say even like your bog hogs or your Z-mans and stuff. It's a much, how do I say this? It's a much tighter vibration, if that makes sense. It's a much tighter the vibrations are much Bobby knows what I'm talking about here, but it's like the movement's not, it's much more intense, but it's a much quicker vibration versus like the Z-mans, your bog hogs. Some of them, it's a more intense, spaced out vibration. Hopefully that makes sense. I don't think it did, but it makes sense to me.
I'm just saying this, if you were to pick up a jackhammer, if you were to pick up a slobber knocker, if you were to pick up a shock blade and a jawbreaker, if you a clickbait, whatever the name is, and fish them, you're going to notice that there are intricacies in the way that bait reacts in the water as far as how erratic it is. And then also trailers, there's Ryan Steger comments here. He goes, bladed jigs must be taking off because Dick's Sporting Goods locks them up now.
What's funny, Ryan, is I never go to Dick's Sporting Goods ever, especially for fishing stuff. It's just not something I do. And I went there for some reason a couple weeks ago. I was up in that area and we were looking for something else. And I was like, I'm going to check and see what their fishing section's like. I probably found 5 packages. One was a clickbait. One was the new Buka Rat, the one with Ketchco, the plastic one.
That's right. Yep.
2 6 cents 6 cents crankbaits, and then some spinner bait, all empty packages that are like shoved in the back that people are taking and stuffing in their pockets. So
oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Paul Russell says, I know people are going to gag. Try a Guggenbait's happy trailer on the back of the bladed jig. I'm curious what I haven't even seen that. I'm gonna Google it and see what it's all about. But that was my next question, was going to be for trailers. So one of the things this year that I just started to get into was like more of that spike tail style trailer, like the what is it? The Spunk Shad. I know Missile Baits has a collab now with the Spunk Shad as well. The Chatter Spike. That's the one that I had picked up because I happened to see him at the show and was thinking about it. And I understand the appeal of a straight tail. Really, that's the happy trailer.
I'm looking at it too. I was just gonna say that's actually a pretty wild bait. I've never seen that before.
Hell yeah. Okay. You know what? I got somebody in the know, and I'm going to ask some questions. I'm going to ask Becca some questions.
Oh, there you go. So Paul, if you're listening, do you rig that tail horizontally or vertically?
That's what I was going to bring up, because I oftentimes would naturally use a paddle tail swim bait, like a Kitech Fat Impact.
Sure.
Ryan Steger says that he hates himself for using a Saucy Swimmer. Dude, those Saucy Swimmer trailers, they're solid. They hold up. They really are. And their colors are pretty interesting too. Cut off a couple of segments. Where is it? Paul says cut off a couple segments and it's game on. Gotcha.
Horizontal.
Horizontal, no shit. Okay. The Razor Shads was another one that a lot of folks used to like, where because of that vertical, and that's
Yeah.
a bulky trailer. It really is.
Yeah.
There was a big diesel minnow that I picked up, like just because there was a color I was looking for. I'm like, all right, maybe I don't know what these North
Dude,
Carolina fish are going to be doing.
I couldn't give those fucking things away when I had OGO, dude. No one bought the diesel minnows.
The diesel minnows.
Oh, no one bought those things.
If there's a color that Z-Man has, that if I can find the diesel minnow, I'm gonna look on Omnia, and if I can find them, if they have them in stock, I'm gonna order them because I have a feeling that might make a sick pike bait.
Ooh, yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. Is it might be amazing in those
So
situations.
I like Zach's comment here. Just had warbirds show up on the porch a few days ago. They are pretty amazing. Oh, I wonder why he had them show up on his porch. Does that mean they might be in a box soon?
Maybe. Smaller Lake Fork Magic Shad is an amazing trailer, especially on a naked bladed jig. Oh yeah, I've thrown that too. That Magic Shad.
Yeah.
And it's a good look, but that spike tail seems to be the new thing. A lot of folks have told me, they're like, I don't know what the big deal is. I use flukes on my bladed jigs, and I'm like, that sounds perfect. You know what I mean? Because
dude, it all comes down to personal preference, man.
Yeah.
You know, I love them. I love. They made a good trailer for Jig in the Canal. Who's that? Who Dan? We just talked about 6 different companies.
I think he's actually talking about the Guggen stuff.
Dude, you know what, man? And we've talked about this, Bobby, and we're not going to go on a tangent here.
Yeah.
Say all you want about Guggen. Some of their shit I don't like, but you know what? Their flukes were the only flukes I threw for a while.
Oh, the Z-Man. That's what it is.
The Z-Man.
Yeah.
All the diesel minnows.
Little, just for what it is, you heard it here, folks. The
breaking news.
Look in May in your Dark Horse Tackle box in May. So if you're not subscribed, go visit Dark Horse Tackle right now and check the notes in this podcast, and you can save yourself some. And in fact, if you're watching this on Facebook or on YouTube or on Instagram, go check our information. We have our link tree up there, especially on Instagram. You guys go and check that out because you can save yourself some money. We got all our promo codes listed with links to everybody, and get yourself all set up. Made for Warbirds. Good to know, Zach. Look at you, Zach. Zachariah with all the good stuff. Yeah, man, there's like, it's one of those presentations I specifically want to dedicate more time to, build that confidence, because I'm a believer in it. You know, it's just kind of like letting it all know, you know, figuring it all out, making it happen. Oh, and a Martin's bladed jig. I had a feeling that was coming. That was coming. Which will be insane. I love it. You know, I love mixing it up. And you know, that's the thing. If you try these different baits, you'll notice that there are little intricacies here and there. So if you get comfortable enough with them, and you know that, oh, hey, this Picasso shock blade is going to rattle the teeth out of a northern pike. Okay, cool. Yep. Maybe I don't need something so aggressive. Maybe I look at something that's a little bit more mellow, but super erratic. You know, what fits the bill there? Klondike is always amazing.
So I like Pat. Okay. I like that. That actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, on a bait like a Shatter, trailer doesn't have a paddle tail is better, since the blade is doing the work. I've heard that if you rig it so that it's the proper way, where the tail is up and down like this, but with the spine is facing up, it causes interference with the way that the blade is and what the head wants to do. And if you rig it upside down, I don't know. One of the things that I started doing was I would actually take a pair of scissors. Do I have a paddle tail with a tail on here?
You know what else? You know what else I do with bladed jigs sometimes, Bobby?
Go. What's that?
I don't run a trailer at all.
On a bladed jig, really?
Yeah.
No shit.
Yep. The biggest fish I've caught on a bladed jig, I did not have a trailer on it.
Really?
Yep.
No shit. I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense because you can shrink that profile quite a bit.
Correct me if I'm wrong here. I think the person that told me about that is Zach.
Really? Oh, so this paddle tail right here, what I often will do, and I don't have my scissors here, but I basically would just take this and take that tail off so it was flat.
Okay.
And that works great. It works absolutely fantastic. Lots of times, like I will save like a beat up swim bait, and I'm like, all right, we'll pop this on here.
That's
if
actually
I
pretty
get a couple
smart.
people.
It's like a pintail fluke or something, but it
Yeah.
does it, but it's not. But it's not.
It wasn't him. I don't know. I don't know.
It
I don't know what
wasn't
he's
him.
talking about.
I think it was on the show here, but anyway,
Might have been. Yeah.
no, it wasn't Zach. It's like a pintail when you pull it off, but not as erratic. You know what I mean? Because that
I know,
plastic's
yep.
a little bit tighter. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I could see that. I could see that. And it's still got a fat enough body to build up that profile a little bit.
Yeah. Yep.
It's a
Yep.
good look, you know. I love it, man. I think it's
Zach's
awesome.
gonna
So, yeah,
murder me in my sleep tonight. He knows where I live.
bladed jigs in early spring, you know, I mean, people are talking about it, and it's a bait that a lot of people have a shit ton of confidence in, and I need to just get my shit together, you know.
Yeah.
Pat Martin points this out. He says even something like a grub with a curly tail. Yep, that'll freaking do it unbelievably. I love a curly tail grub, and Sematis bait sells something like that. Dan says,
Dan, drop by the house, or I'll drop them off your house. I got something for you. I'm not gonna say it
Oh.
here, but I got something for you.
there we go. I love it. Oh, that is pretty awesome, guys. We're coming up on 2 hours for segment number 1.
That's okay. We're new. We're new now. We're
yeah.
reborn. We're reborn.
And part of it is that you guys are so into this, you know, as far as, you know, the comments, this is the shit we like. You guys are talking all about this stuff, and we're engaging with you, and it's adding another element. So that's what we're all about. Don't go letting people know about, oh, well, I mean, I think everybody knows throwing a spinnerbait without a trailer can be just absolutely amazing. Have you ever tried running a chatterbait with a trailer hook?
I have not.
For those short strakes?
I have not. I never run.
You never run a trailer hook?
No.
I used to run a trailer hook on spinnerbaits.
Yeah.
And
I didn't like. I felt like it took away from the linear movement that I am always looking for with spinnerbaits. I didn't like it.
Yeah. Sometimes it's nice to just take like a big, like a 3/4 ounce jig.
Yeah.
You know, like a round ball jig, like a ball head jig, and just put like 17 or 18 trailer hooks on it, and then just fucking like rip it. You know, see what you catch.
Yeah.
See what you catch. You know what I mean?
You know what running a trailer hook on a spinnerbait reminds me of?
What's that?
When dogs rub their asses on your carpet
because it drags.
Yeah, that's what I feel like when I run a trailer hook on a spinnerbait.
Oh, I love it, dude. Pat says, goddamn 2 hour segment 1 FTG for us is babbling so long. You know what? That might be the move.
Ooh.
Guys, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We've got a brand new Just the Tip for you. We have a Gear of the Week for you, which I'm stoked to hear about. And then in segment number 3, we got Powerbait Paul. Powerbait Paul and I had an awesome conversation. I hope you guys are around for it. Check it out. It's going to be really good. You guys are not going to hear this on the live stream. It is only going to be on the podcast. And a few weeks later, yes, I'm going to put the whole video up for you guys on the YouTube channel as well. Don't go too far. We got more Jigs and Bigs coming up right after this. Wow, that's awesome. What a great show. You guys are fucking amazing, by the way. Every single one of you on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube. I mean, it's unbelievable. I can't believe there's still people watching us on Instagram. This is crazy.
On anything.
It's absolutely amazing. Oh, this
We're
is
not
good
boring
shit.
you. That's good.
No, maybe this is really, really
I
good.
don't know. Maybe those people are actually sleeping. They fell asleep to us. Who knows?
That might be it. I almost played this that last time that you said, oh, yeah, Sean the Fisherman, God rest his soul or something. I almost went. I just would have felt terrible. Oh, God. That would have been bad news. Let's see. What do we call this? Just the Tip. All right, here we go. We'll go ahead and do this. So one of these intros that, or one of these segments that it's more about logic than anything else. All right, we'll go ahead and do it. We're rolling. Okay, we are rolling in 3, 2.
And perhaps play a little game called Just the Tip. Just for a second, just to see how it feels. Or ouch, ouch, you're on my hip.
Alrighty, guys, just the tip this week. Oh, it's Jigs and Bigs goodness, segment number 2. We got a good just the tip this week, and this actually comes from, it was a suggestion that Sean the Fisherman had made a little while back, and he'd asked me, he was like, "Why did you start throwing like a finesse swim bait, or why did you start throwing this?" And he would always ask me these questions, and I'm like, well, because I have history with it, and I can catch fish with it, and it makes sense, and things like that. Now, obviously, there's certain sorts of elements where you kind of, you can lean toward what the conditions that you're fishing in. You might not necessarily, you might be throwing into like pads or some shit like that and punching. And there's different techniques that are like really specific to the situation, the real situational sort of things. But in the more grand scheme, like when you're searching for fish, like if you're in a body of water that you're like, maybe you've looked at a map and you're like, there's a drop off here, there's a hump here that looks good, I'm going to try and run such and such in this area. Oh, I found some weeds that are over in this one region or something. Maybe I'll put something together. And he would ask me, and this gets back down to the bladed jig thing. He would say, dude, why not just start with the most aggressive, the most obnoxious presentation? He's like, because if it's not going to work, you're going to find out quick that it's not going to work. And I thought about that, and it makes a ton of sense. I do this with topwater all the time, and I never applied it to anything subsurface. And when I say I do this with topwater all the time, I like to throw the biggest and loudest topwater I have, or a buzzbait. And sometimes that buzzbait is like a crazy buzzbait with like multiple blades. And it's because I want that drawing power. I want it to get attention. It's part of the reason why I initially started throwing lipless cranks as search baits as my go-to all the time, was because they're obnoxious. Now, I almost kind of think a bladed jig is even a little bit more intense of a vibration. There are some lipless that are, that are insanity. You know what I mean? And you could play with different things with like lipless cranks, like using a one knocker or a silent, changing up the sound property or something like that. But if you can get, you start out with like the most obnoxious presentation. This has even worked with the BFS type stuff. Like I will throw that downsized bladed jig. I'll throw a crank with rattles first. And depending on what the fish are telling me, and sometimes it means like nothing, I'll then incrementally kind of work down to something. I won't necessarily go mute and throw something that's super, super finessey, like a tiny, quarter ounce jig head with a trailer or with a paddle tail on there or something like that, which is generally how I lean in to kind of fish a little bit. So, I mean, there's sometimes where like, if I'm fishing, I hate to use the example of like stumps or something, but I'll say like something that is like weeds that are like ground, like shallow weeds that go to the top, like where it's slop. You're not going to throw a chatterbait in there, but you might want to throw a chatterbait along that outside edge and try and get something to grab at it from outside of that edge. So get outside of it and try it that way. So it's more of a logic tip this week than anything else. It's like, if you're starting in a situation, you're like, I don't know what to do, lean toward that more obnoxious presentation. And when I saw what I saw on the water this week, when I started out with that, it was still finesse. It was still super tiny. It was an 1/8 ounce bladed jig from Jackal. I started throwing that, and I had a fish swipe at it, 2 different fish swipe at it and not actually commit to it. I knew that there was something I had to change, and in changing to something that was slightly more subtle by ditching that blade, but keeping about the same size with the skirt and with the trailer, paid out huge. And granted, that might just be one instance, but it's one of those things that I think you will see. It just makes much more sense over time. Start out with a more obnoxious presentation than you're expecting to, and you might be surprised, but be ready, because you might have to.
For sure.
Yeah. What about you, Joe? Like, have you had any experience with this?
I'm kind of the same way. In my mind, you have to kind of see, because the way the fish are going to act. I'm talking bass here. The way the fish are going to act could change day by day. Your water temperatures, your your water temperatures, your conditions, your weather conditions. Oh, gee, excited to have my bro take us out fishing next month. That's my sister's coming from Michigan.
I know it is. That's awesome, dude. Nice.
Yeah. So I promised her I'd take her out and the little man, my nephew. So
that's awesome, man.
But yeah, so in your mind, if you start off in my mind, if I start off with those, quote unquote obnoxious baits, that's where you're gonna get you tend to get those bigger bites. You know what I mean? Those bigger, more aggressive bites. Better, it could be better hook sets, especially on those treble hooked baits.
Yep.
But in the big thing on here, and this is kind of another tip, but we'll talk about more in depth. It's like, just because don't throw the obnoxious, especially in areas where the fish are, especially if you have live scope or just know there's fish in there. Break down that spot. Don't just throw one bait, give up, move on. Break down that spot. Start with that. For me, if I'm in a shore spot, I'm gonna throw that obnoxious knocking fucking crankbait, start on the shore and run it through. If I don't get anything there, I might throw like a fluke or something, start jerk a fluke, a soft jerk bait. And then that's where I'll start to, if I'm still not getting anything, I'll start, getting real finessey. And especially if I know there's a fish sitting in there, or if I see it on the scope or whatever.
Yep.
And so I'm going to work it. I'm going to break down that spot. One thing that I personally need to work on and get better at is breaking down spots. I am known to be like, oh, if I don't get a bite in fucking 5 minutes because I have super ADHD, I'll move it to a different spot. And I need to stop doing that. So break down that spot. Start at the top and work your way down.
I love that. Dan Griffin chimes in here. He goes, especially this time of year, low, slow, and get them broken down. Yep. It's true, because those fish can be so... like, you get a change in the weather, especially where we are. Like, we just had this week where they're just locked up on whatever it is. It might be the bottom. It might be like a lay down or a stump that they're just like locked into. And you have to actually get that bait directly over there. You have to get their attention. It was actually a swim bait video from Tactical Bass a year or two ago, I think. And I was watching it, and this was when I think it was about a year ago, because I was just getting into throwing mag drafts. And a big reason why I was looking to get into that style of swim bait specifically, and that size of the 8-inch, was the calling power that it's got, the ability to be seen and to be seen as a high value enough meal for a fish to be coaxed out of where it is to come and eat. I'm not there yet with those baits. Like, I'm not having the success that I was hoping to. Does not mean that I'm not still trying them and still trying to figure it all out. But it's like, I feel like when you're throwing something that's a little bit more obnoxious, like that can, and there's obviously telltale signs. Like, people talk about it all the time. There's a little bit of wind, you've got some chop on the water, you've got a better likelihood that they're going to be chasing, which is a good thing. They'll go a little bit further out there. There's a lot of tips that I have learned that I think now I'd like to kind of share with you guys. And I also want the jig heads and the jig head community to chime in as well and call me out. Like, if I'm fucking talking out of my ass, like, let's have a conversation about it, because that's what Just the Tip really kind of is. Like, it's a learning space, and that's kind of what it's all about. So, I would actually venture to say, if the jig heads wanted to submit a tip, they should absolutely feel free.
Why not? Why not?
They could use the hotline to call it in and go that route. I personally like, but getting back to this tip specifically, like, I do think, I'm like, just logistically thinking, like, start with that loudest bait, get the attention, and if it's a little something else that's got to change, well, then you can go ahead and do what you got to do. If you're in a boat, you're in a kayak, plan out your rod selection and what you're rigging, with that in mind. So maybe you start out with something that's like, maybe I'm throwing a chatterbait, and then I'll throw a swim jig if I'm not getting bit on that chatterbait. Well, I will be totally honest with you. When it comes to specifically that choice, do I throw a swim jig? Do I throw a chatterbait? In a situation where I throw a swim jig a lot is when I'm dealing with a lot of wood. because I get hung up all the time with
Yeah.
There are some like the cross eyes ones that have weed guards, which I might start toying around with.
Sure.
To kind of like bring that into the fold. But like with a swim jig, you're getting number one, you're getting the dual action with the skirt, and whatever trailer you're putting on, but you just don't have that obnoxious, loud vibration.
Yeah.
And you can kind of eliminate that. That's a good move. So when you set that up, plus I like to have a swim jig tied on anyway, because I'll use it just as a straight up jig, throw it in the cover, and see what happens.
Yeah,
It'll work great for that. So
yeah,
like when you're organizing what you're, if you're like me, I'll go to a body of water. And before I take my kayak off the boat or off the trailer or anything, I'll look at the color of the water, the visibility, stuff like that.
Sure.
Sometimes I'll even take a rod and just like throw some kind of a bait and see like what the visibility actually looks like. And then based off of there, I might make a couple of judgment calls about what I'm going to do. Cause that's what I like to do, is set myself up and I'll make whatever changes that I have to do. I've done it before where I've jumped in the boat with whatever was rigged up and I'm like, this isn't the right thing. And then I'm wasting time changing stuff out. So take that time ahead of time and do it. Yeah. That's a whole other tip. But I definitely starting with that more obnoxious presentation is the way to go.
Yep,
I feel like we should probably have a conversation. I think this would be a popular one. Conversation on when to throw a spinnerbait versus when to throw a bladed jig. Because there's a lot of people that think that they are interchangeable. And I think that in some instances they are, but sometimes they'll bite one and not the other. And I'm curious what maybe experiences folks have had that where they can kind of provide a little bit of sort of insight as to what might be the difference.
Right.
What we got here, Jay Manning says, just saying welcome to the Facebook grifters. LOL. Oh God, my God.
I mean, I had a good time the other day.
Oh, hell yeah. Dan Griffin says, I'd look at drops and a slower bat. The fish are lazy right now. They're looking in, but I am more of getting it in their face. If they don't bite a slow moving bait, I feel like they're not going to eat. Again, low and slow. You're not wrong, dude. Like, low and slow is a big deal.
Yeah, this time of year, you have to be fishing so slow. It's like, it sucks. Yeah.
No, it really, really does. But it's crazy. Like a little change in temp. You get, a warm night overnight and, for a couple of days, and that can just get them fired up. Or on the other side of it, sometimes you'll get like a night where it's just been real stable all the way through, and then a little bit of rain comes through and it drops that temperature and just kind of like gets them all jacked up.
Yeah.
Think
about it this way. This is how everyone needs to kind of think about it. At least us, like Northerners, New Englanders.
Yep.
So it's 20, 30, high 30s outside. We're not moving around. We don't want to be outside. We don't want to do anything, but we get those 50-degree days, and all of a sudden everyone's out there. The temperature gets to 50. Everyone's out there doing yard work, all that stuff, like motivated, moving. It's the same thing with fish.
And that's when they're biting. Yeah. You're right, man. You're right. I love it. Let's go ahead and do it. I'm excited to hear about this. We this week have no FTG because you motherfuckers have been on your best goddamn behavior. I have been out fishing my ass off this week. I've been out running all over the place. I haven't had any kind of bullshit going on at all. So what I do want to do is use this opportunity where FTG would go is to tell you guys straight up. So Jigs and Bigs has a hotline that we use here on the show. The hotline phone number is 413-324-8519. Hang on.
That number again.
413-324-8519. That name, that is for you guys to call in and leave us a message, because we really don't answer that line at all. We don't answer it at all. It just goes straight to voicemail. And you can use that phone number for a number of things. You can call in an FTG. Something's going down on the water. Use that opportunity when you're all fired up and out of your fucking mind. call us and leave that, because that makes for great podcasting. If you want to just give a shout out, you can do that too. If you want to, if you want to submit something for just the tip, go for it. Anything like that. If you guys want to call, leave us a message, or just say hello and give us a shout out, we're probably going to use it on the show, to be perfectly honest with you. Most likely we're probably going to use it on the show.
Yep.
And it'll be good stuff. So feel free in FTG, especially this season, because it's going to happen. You're going to see idiots out there on the water. Karens abound. We want to hear your stories, man. This is your opportunity to sound off a little bit. Oh, God. So he goes, not enough folks work a bladed jig like a jig. And that's true. It is a jig after all. And then Pat Martin says, is that where I talk to Uncle Frank? Is that right?
Yes, that's where you talk to Uncle Frank.
Speaking of Uncle Frank, that was a Shaun the Fisherman original right there. But have you watched that documentary? Because you're the right age, Joe. Have you watched that documentary about Nickelodeon?
I've been hearing about it. I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah.
That's it. The wife and I want to watch it.
So I watched two. We'll talk about this in the third segment, but we'll talk about it, because last night I watched a lot of shit. It'll be interesting.
Okay. All right.
It would be interesting. That would be a great guest for the show. Uncle Frank. Oh God. Frank Scalish interview. I love it. Oh, let's go and get to it. Gear of the week. What do we got?
Okay, gearheads, it's time to talk tools. Jigs and Bigs gear of the week.
So, Joe, what do we have for gear of the week?
I'm coming in hot with some gear.
I love it. Hit me.
So one thing I did last year was, obviously on the boat, I have more bags of plastics I know what to do with.
Oh, yeah.
And I was putting them into like 1 gallon Ziploc bags, because I've seen some people do that, and it just, I realized it wasn't working for me. I was like, I don't like it. It's just not for me. It just doesn't. I just pile them into the little compartment I have them in. Hated it. The OCD in me didn't like it. So I searched for something, and what I found was the 6 cents bait bags. They have a large and a small version. They are like $15 for the large, $10 for the small. They hold I only use the larges. They hold, I don't even know. It's got to be at least like 20 to 30 bags of plastics in there.
Oh,
and
nice.
And the good thing about them is they are, they're cube. They're like rectangular, and they like just look neat. They fit neat into my compartment. I can label them, because I separate all my craws, swim baits, worms, my drop shot baits, my shaky head baits, and that has just given me the opportunity to do that. I wish I had one here to show you guys, but I don't, because they're all in the boat. But the 6 cents bait bag, they're awesome. I highly recommend them. They're zippered. They, they hold up well. They're awesome. And it's a pretty fair price. I bought if you're buying a bunch of them, it can get pricey, but I promise you they're worth it. They do have them. They did have them on Omnia. I think they're all sold out, unfortunately, on there. But they are in stock at 6 cents fishing. Even if you go,
they're in stock.
Oh,
no, I take that back. I take that back. No, they are out of stock right now.
Yeah, it was like all variations because they're popular. Once people start to see them, they're super popular. They're awesome.
Which one are you using? Are you using the small one or the large one?
Large. I use the large ones. I don't have any small ones. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, dude.
Yes, Chris. It's the longer one, the large one. Yeah, I only use the large. I don't use the smalls.
That's good to know, man. So it's fucking ironic that you chose this, because I've been looking at different ways to store mainly my surplus soft plastics, because I'm a big fan of like taking out notebooks of soft plastic. Like I have a bait binder from Reaction Tackle.
Yep.
Check the link for affiliate links. They have 3 different bait binders that they make. I have a medium and I have a large. The large is dedicated exclusively to swim baits.
Yeah. Yep.
From 2-inch swim baits to 6-inch swim baits, like, and actually 7-inch swim baits, and I have a few in there. So I try to keep that like all together. And then the other one, I kind of put like grubs, worms, craws, creature baits, neds, things like that.
Right.
And I find that works generally pretty well for me because I've got them laid out pretty good. But it's that bulk stuff that I want to keep on hand. Where if I'm like, I need more green pumpkin, paddle tails, I can then go through this. Now, I did buy like a Bass Mafia, like one of those money bags, a bigger one. Remember, I had one of those and I lost it.
I do remember that.
That sucked.
So
And
I had used those money bags and like bait bags. A bunch of different
Yeah.
companies do them, and again, it kind of fell to the same thing where it's like the organization OCD I have. It just
it's just a
it just
catch-all, you know?
Yep. And these the good thing about these bait bags from 6th Sense is like you can just stack them in there neatly. You can like I said, they have label, easy access. You can see immediately what you want, and you grab it. And it's funny because I like when it comes to my soft plastics, I have like 3 staging areas. I have like just a drawers full of stuff, and then I'll move them to like I have the I think the Frable boxes that all my excess ones are in the garage, and then they move to my bait bags in the when I know I'm going to be using that time, because there's no sense in having soft plastics in my boat I know I'm not going to use for that body of water that time of year or whatever. So I'm constantly rotating them, taking them out. I'm constantly moving them around.
And having the organization definitely helps. Like I have like, for me, I was using that money bag exactly as just like a big catch-all. So I could be like, all these plastics can go in here, and then I'll go, and I have the Bassmaster when you would sign up and get the membership. Did you ever get one of these? That little bag, I don't know if it's meant for your lunch or like a 3,600 box or something, but it's got like these 2 zippers and a flap on the top. And
I do remember that.
In the front.
I do have that. Yeah, I think I gave it to one of my kids.
I have had mine for years, and it is so disintegrated from the sun.
Oh,
it is so worn out.
Yeah.
Like you look at the back of it, and it looks like a pair of jeans that like some trendy girl is gonna wear to the bar. You know what I mean? It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, but I was looking at Z-Man makes the blocks, I think they're called, the bait blocks. Very similar, but I'm glad to see these 6th Sense ones, because I'm looking around, because it's sort of like that same sort of idea. I'm looking to replace that Bassmaster bag, because that's what I'll do is the shit that doesn't really fit in, or that's more situational. That's like, I'll be like, oh, I'm going to throw this, or I've been wanting to throw this plastic. I'll go ahead and throw this in here. I just got, I ordered a bunch of stuff when I got into the BFS from Mule, and we're actually going to have Ethan on soon. I'll be recording with him, I think, next weekend. But I just ordered a bunch of stuff from Mule, and I was in North Carolina, and Ramon came to the campsite, and we recorded that show. And he left me with a pack of the Mule, the little craws. They look like ice fishing, like little, like,
I have seen those.
They're so tiny. I am stoked to try these puppies out. I'm basically just waiting for the water temp to be up high enough to where it's like, okay, so craws would naturally be out at this time, and not like, this isn't going to be weird, That's all I'm waiting on. But it's like, it's those type of situational baits that I'm like, I'm looking for a bag to do that. I'm glad you mentioned this, dude. And is that big one? It looks, in the picture on Omnia, it looks like it's leather.
It's like it's not leather. It's a very
I don't want to have to oil it and shit,
No. But it is a very like robust, like brushing it, and like shining your shoes. No, it's a very tough material, some kind of synthetic material.
Perfect.
Yeah, but they're awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna check them out. I'm gonna wait until I can track one down and give it a whirl. Maybe I'll AB it. Maybe I'll get one of those and a Z-Man one and say, like, what one's better?
Yeah, there you go.
Let's drive over it. Oh, it fucking holds up. Dude, that is freaking bananas, man. What a great goddamn show. I got to say, big shout out to all of you guys who've been in here watching all this stuff, getting into it. I think what we're going to do now is just take a quick break, real quick break, turn it around. I've got Power Bait Paul in the beef seat joining us. Great interview. But on the back end of that, Joe and I are going to wrap this sucker up, and we will see you guys. Do not go too far. Much more Jigs and Bigs goodness coming up right after
the yes.
Yeah.
Uncle Frank.
So yeah, we're gonna have a little conversation about some fucked up shit that I watched this weekend. This will be pretty good. Let's go. Where is that intro music? Right here. Sweet. All right, folks. Hey, thanks to everybody who is joining us. We're gonna record our last segment. Hamner just won it. Oh shit, dude.
Classic.
Hamner fucking took it. Look at that.
Yep.
I believe Hamner was Andrew at Tackle Talk this last week on his show. He had gotten some info from some folks, basically just making like, oh, who do you think's going to win it? Who do you think's going to win it? And I think Hamner was mentioned twice, at least once.
Oh,
by
no
somebody.
I haven't had a chance to listen to that one yet.
Yeah, I just listened to it. I think I listened to a show, I think on Wednesday or maybe Thursday.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no shit, that's interesting.
Yeah, I watched it Friday and Saturday.
Yep.
It sucked because it wasn't like the quality of fish that, you know, a lot of people are hoping for, or even the bags. But someone was on coming up on his heels today. I can't think of his name right now. I can't remember his name, but it's good to see they held out. Yeah.
You know, it's gonna happen, Joe, where you and I are gonna go to the Classic.
Yeah, you know who is there.
You might be in the Classic, and I'll just have a booth at the fucking.
I hope so, but
let's see what happens.
So Noelle's down there, and I was chatting with her a little bit.
Yeah,
I was chatting with her a little bit about it. Yeah.
Andrew's down there right now.
That's
Noelle's
right,
down there right now. I mean, there's a bunch of folks who've been seeing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
One of these years, I think you and I will do that. I think that'll be interesting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
It'll be fun. Just for the spectacle, if nothing else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We'll record some shit.
Hop on a skater and watch it, man. Just follow who we want to follow.
Oh, wow, dude. That's a great idea.
Yeah, that's what I was planning on doing.
Shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, fucking
grab some brewskis and some sandwiches and just
dude, I think that's a great idea. I think it's one of the Johnson boys got the big bass, maybe 6 pounds. And from down there, 6 pounds. You know what I mean? Wow, that's crazy, man. All right, cool. We'll mention that too. In the thanks, Nick. Appreciate you being a roving reporter. That's awesome, dude. Nitro paparazzis. All right, let's go ahead and do this. We'll finish this last segment right here. We are rolling. We got the 3 and the 2. Alrighty, guys. Jigs and Bigs here, coming to an end this episode. Thank you so much to everybody who's been a part of this. We got a bunch of folks. We are live streaming still on all of our social platforms. We're on our Facebook page, live streaming there. We're on YouTube, full public viewing. Go ahead and, everybody's chiming in. And we're even on Instagram right now, and some folks on Instagram have been chiming in, which is pretty awesome. We still got a bunch of people over there joining us. Stone and Lure says hello. How you doing, Stoneman? What's up, baby? It's great to have Power Bait Paul on the show, man. Paul was absolutely awesome. It was a great conversation. We had a good time. There is a nugget of this. Paul and I talk a little bit about music. He is a self-proclaimed metalhead, and we talk a little bit of music. That segment is going to be on the YouTube interview that's going to show up. We're going to pop that on there, so you guys can check that out as well as the whole interview. Some people just like watching talking heads, and that's okay. That's fine. That's cool. I think the Talking Heads are a great band, personally.
Yeah.
But I had mentioned kind of as a random crowbar into the segment that whole Nickelodeon documentary series that's been on I think it's on Apple TV, and it's been getting a lot of buzz, man. And like, I don't want to weigh in like my opinions on it or anything like that. I'm a little bit too old for that to have been my childhood at all. But Joe, you are not. That's like
No,
right
and
in
it's
the wheelhouse.
crazy because like right when Nickelodeon in its heyday, I lived down there. Like I
Yeah.
was in the audience for Double Dare once. I went there
Oh,
because
really?
I lived in that
Oh,
area.
man.
The Hidden Temple, and then oh shoot, and then we watched we were audience members for All That. I think it was All That.
Oh, for
Yeah,
all that. So you
yeah,
saw one of the fucking
yeah.
what the hell's the dude's name? Dan whatever. His deals.
Okay. Oh,
Dan
yes. I mean,
Schneider. Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I was young, dude. So
Dude, oh yeah, you had no idea.
So all that I didn't really, watch that much, being younger. But when we're sitting there watching that, I'm like, oh, let's just leave and go on the rides,
Yeah, exactly. No, it was intense, man. The watching that, I was like, holy fucking shit. Like there was some shit that went down. I highly recommend watching it because it's
Yeah, I'm
very,
gonna watch
very
it now. I'm
eye-opening.
gonna watch it now.
But I watched something else that was on Apple TV too. And I know I mentioned this, God, was it this year? Maybe when it came out. There was a movie. I love horror movies. I love specifically in the horror genre. I love slasher movies. I
Okay.
love the Friday the 13th series. I
Yeah.
love it. It's one of the best. It's one of my favorite franchises that's ever been. I also love a lot of the other classic slasher movies. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is in there.
Okay. Yeah.
Dude, I watched Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Oh God. That is 84 minutes I will never get back.
Oh, there's another. I don't know if it was Apple TV. I was scrolling the other day. It might have been Netflix or one of the other ones, but it was it had something to do with this family that like moved to Norway, and there was a gnome, like a Christmas gnome that was like murdering people. I don't know, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I spotted that too. I think it is. It
Yeah.
might be Apple TV. I was amazed because I really wanted this movie to be, because I thought it was so cool to take something that was so like innocent and
You
childlike
want some honey?
and then make that motherfucker just an absolute
Killing machine.
and it was, dude, it was just so weird. But like there were so many, like people hate it. It was voted, I think, from Rotten Tomatoes, the worst film of 2023. And I don't disagree. I don't
They're
disagree.
running out of ideas, man.
They really are. But there's a sequel coming out. Like so my thought is this. I think that like the producers and the writers of Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, I think all they're trying to do is to capitalize and make it like a Sharknado.
Yeah,
Remember how much of a
Yep.
shit show Sharknado is, but there's like 50 different Sharknado movies.
Yep.
And
Or
I'm
even like Cocaine Bear. That's like
Oh my
people are
God.
loving that movie.
I never saw that, and I've
Me
been
neither.
wanting to see it. I think
Yeah.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna pop some edibles. I'm gonna go and sit with the wife on the couch, and I think we're gonna watch Cocaine Bear. I think we need to.
Perfect.
I think that's a good idea.
What a night.
Really know how to like bring it to that next level. This is awesome. I will say this. Jay Manning had put something in here, and I do want to reflect these sentiments that all of you folks that are in the live stream right now, if you're enjoying this and you like this experience, we do live stream every single episodes exclusively for our jig heads. There's a private YouTube link that you get sent every time that we record the show. So you get all of the in-between kind of stuff, the conversations, and some of these discussions that go and get pretty deep. We get a lot of Q&A that does not necessarily make the show. And we're actually bringing in some additional some additional levels at for the jig heads that will include like specialty live shows that will happen exclusively within the Patreon format or on the private YouTube or something like that. But that is coming soon too. So if you like this and you like the idea of having this show get put together and being able to experience it like in the moment and comment and all this stuff, like Pat Martin says right here, the costumes were so bad in Blood and Honey. They were god awful. Don't even get me started. Like, I can't understand how Winnie the Pooh looked kind of like Winnie the Pooh, but Piglet looked like fucking, what was it, Bebop or whoever from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh,
like,
God.
but Piglet looked like he should have been in Slipknot, dude. Like, it was crazy. He had tusks and everything, but like Pooh looked like Pooh, except he was wearing overalls. And apparently that's what it was. They were able to do the I think I read somewhere that they were able to do this show or able to do this movie as long as Pooh wasn't wearing just a red shirt. So they put him in like overalls and a flannel.
Yeah.
And I think it was the red shirt. Disney was like, you know, and they're like, okay, fine, fuck you.
Do they mention them by name and stuff? Do
They
have...
do, dude. Christopher, I'm gonna spoil it right now. If you haven't watched it,
yeah.
So Christopher Robin goes back to the 100-acre woods with his fiance, and basically what happens is, and this is what I think is bullshit. They describe it. I think there's even like some on-screen text where they say basically the forced his friends got pissed that he had left, and he would. The thing is like he would bring them food like from the kitchen and everything. So they depended on him. Eventually they had to eat the one that was dying. And I think it was Eeyore was dying. So they ate Eeyore. And then they started to, you know, when they ran out of food, when it was Piglet and Pooh, when they ran out of food, they just started eating humans. Somewhere along the line, Christopher Robin's house became like an Airbnb or something like that. And like this random group of girls went for like a girls trip. You see where this is going. And they all got picked off one at a time. But it's like, so how did Winnie the Pooh and Piglet learn how to drive cars or use a fucking chipper to, destroy a human being? Like there's so much shit that I was like, oh God, I get it. It's a slasher movie. I love it. Matt's getting into it. He goes, I figured out how Blood and Honey was made. The original book rights became public when the movie was made. That's right. So he goes, it's so that's pre-Disney and anyone can use it under parody rights. That's exactly right. It was the red shirt that they couldn't do because now it's a Disney thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Oh, and that's why Tigger wasn't in it. Yeah, Tigger wasn't mentioned at all.
Okay.
Wasn't mentioned at all. So I don't know. It was kind of interesting. I have no idea where it's necessarily going to go. There's a fucking sequel for it, but man, it was just fucking bananas. Just fucking bananas, man. Oh, good Lord. What a great show. You guys are amazing. Give yourselves a round of applause. You guys are absolutely awesome. Instagram folks, I hope this is an interesting, experience for you to see the recording of this show and how we all put it together. I appreciate you guys. We're going to go ahead and wrap this sucker up. We will see you. That's my man right there. Nick says Piglet is the obvious first choice to eat. Am I wrong? Spit roasted? No, 100%. 100%. Cut his feet off and pickle them. And that's what I'm saying. Go for it. Nice job. Yeah, it was just fucking nuts. Fucking nuts. I hope you guys have a good one. We're in the Northeast. This weather, it actually looks like we're supposed to get rain for a good chunk of this week.
Of
going
course.
From like Tuesday or Wednesday all the way into like maybe even Friday night. And it looks like it's going to be pretty significant, but who knows? The way things have been going lately, it's like things change up like the day before all the time.
Right.
So I'm hoping you guys get out there and get on some fish. Do the best that you can. Remember, start out obnoxious and see how it works. Let us know. Am I talking out of my ass? You know, what's going on? Let me know how you make out with it, folks. And if you're catching them, do us a favor and make sure to tag us on social media. We'll definitely go ahead, get in the comments. We'll hook you up with some likes. We'll share your stuff as well. And we want to know that you guys are catching them and loving this Jigs and Bigs content. So we appreciate you guys. We will see you in 7 days. Joe, do you have anything you want to end on?
That's it. That's it, man. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for interacting, and let's do it again soon.
You guys are the best. Have a good one. Don't forget, like we always say,
tits and ass, smoke some grass.
That is podcast greatness right there.
Podcast greatness.
Yep. That was podcast greatness right there. I love it, dudes. Guys, thank you so much for coming and being part of this. I'm actually going to end up closing the Instagram feed. Appreciate you guys. You guys are absolutely awesome. We'll end that live. And man, what a great show. I wonder if that's actually going to exist so people can watch it after the fact. Who knows? And we're going to end this one. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. jigsandbigs.com for pretty much everything, or make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook.